Welcome to the Fantasy Audiobook. American comics start with Level 5 mutants. Chapter 61. The young man's golden eyes looked at them quietly. The strong wind blew his clothes and made a sound. An invisible temperament emerged from him unconsciously. Elegant, mysterious, ethereal. Looking at the young man in black suspended in the air, everyone fell into a daze. Levitation, flight, the serious faces of the soldiers could not be maintained and instantly froze. Henrik, the leader of the mutant underground organization, raised his head and looked straight at the young man in the air, his eyes full of surprise. Outside the encirclement, other mutants in the underground organization were also dumbfounded at this moment. No, he can still fly. Colonel Cag's mouth was wide open, and the cigarette butt in his mouth fell to the ground without even realizing it, which shows his mood at this moment. Is the information wrong? He hadn't heard that this guy could fly. In the distance, a group of residents who were watching almost dropped their eyes, their faces full of disbelief. Look what they saw. They actually saw the mutant boy walking step by step high in the air on the 4th floor. And suspended in the air and frozen. Flying, this boy actually has the ability to fly. Incredible, incredible. Just when they thought it was over, an ethereal voice sounded from nowhere, as if to greet him. Sacred, solemn, mysterious, ethereal. What is this sound? What happened? Listening and listening, whether it was ordinary soldiers or Colonel Karg, or mutants from underground organizations and residents in the distance, they only felt nervous and panic at this moment. The source of their nervousness was, one after another, eyes were looking uncontrollably towards the young man floating in the wind high in the sky. Gradually, they felt that the young man's temperament had changed again, and his aura gradually increased. Like all things in God, heaven and earth coexist with him, and all things are unique to him. As if the center of the world. At this moment, countless people were shocked. He looks like a god. How could there be such terrifying mutants? At this moment, everyone present was in disbelief. Apart from being shocked, they felt a suffocating pressure envelope them. Boom! The dark sky behind the young man and the flashes of thunder from time to time made them feel suffocated. It's as if they are just ants trying to blaspheme God. Their hearts palpitated under the suffocating pressure. In the end, it was Henrik who bit his lip and came to his senses first. Looking at the young man suspended in the air with the black sky as the background, his black clothes blowing in the wind, and exuding a special temperament, he gritted his teeth and scolded, "Little one, stop pretending to be a ghost. Do you think this will make us retreat? Impossible." As he shouted, everyone who was stunned quickly came to their senses. Yes, there are so many of us, why should we be afraid of this mere mutant? He's just a mutant. What's the matter? He will die under our siege with so much firepower. A tall and strong man among the soldiers spoke loudly, which instantly relieved many people from their panic and felt that he was right. Yes, isn't it just a mutant? What are you afraid of? Baffling. Under the siege of hundreds of people, can this young man hold on? No matter how powerful he is, he will still die under their fire. Colonel Cag also figured it out and said happily, "Attack me." As soon as he finished speaking, a dozen soldiers walked out carrying long black stands. In front of the bracket, there are small rockets, which are clearly rocket launchers. Bang bang bang. In the white smoke and dust, the rocket flew toward the young man in the distance at a speed of 300 meters per second, invisible to the naked eye. Next second, boom boom boom, countless balls of fire exploded, and a heat wave even swept across the surrounding area. Those who were so close had to raise their hands to block the heat wave coming over them. Seeing the fire that engulfed everything within 10 meters, the residents in the distance covered their mouths in fear, with a look of horror in their eyes. Observing the flashing fire, they began to discuss one after another. It's so scary. That boy must have no bones left, right? It's too awful. In the center of the battlefield, Henrik looked surprised, a little surprised by the power of the rocket. Next to him, Colonel Cog showed a proud look in his eyes and explained, "This is an anti-tank rocket launcher. Even if the tank receives so many rounds, it will be destroyed." So, Henrik looked disappointed and snorted, "Is this solved? This little guy is just like that. I thought he was so powerful." Just when Colonel Cag showed satisfaction and Henrik looked disdainful, and the onlookers thought the boy was dead, a scene that surprised them appeared. The firelight dissipated, and what caught their eyes was the intact boy. Not only did he look fine on the outside, even the clothes on his body were not damaged at all. How can it be? Is this guy still human? He is not a man of steel. A body of flesh and blood has been subjected to so many terrifying rockets, and he is still okay. Even the clothes. Countless people were shocked. Henrik's eyes showed surprise, and he didn't understand what was happening. On the other hand, Colonel Cag on the side thought of something at this moment, and a look of disbelief flashed across his face. Is that information true? Can this guy block attacks? Even after thinking about it, Colonel Card gritted his teeth and felt that this young man's ability must have a limit, but he had not yet reached his limit. He regretted a little. He should have brought a nuclear rocket launcher. This guy would never be able to hold on. Not good. Suddenly, when he thought of something, Colonel Cag's face changed slightly and he quietly moved back. Sure enough, not long after, with a shocked expression on his face, the young man's figure did not move, still floating calmly in the air, but suddenly there was a fire in front of him. Then, as if they had received some kind of propulsion, these fires quickly spanned dozens of meters and headed straight towards Colonel Cag and others. Boom! Several soldiers wailed and were engulfed in flames. Colonel Cag looked happy. Fortunately, I escaped early. Then, he looked at Henrik, who was submerged in the fire. This guy won't die. When the firelight dissipated, the scene that appeared in everyone's sight shocked them again. I saw Henrik, the leader of the mutant underground organization, with a disdainful smile on his face, appearing on the same spot unscathed, without even moving. However, unlike the boy above him, his body was transparent and void, like a shadow. Haha, the leader is mighty. The leader's ability is still the same, invincible. Far away, the people in the mutant underground organization all had smiles in their eyes. Their leader's void ability is still as powerful as ever, so what if the incoming attack is powerful? What if they can't hit the leader? Moreover, the leader can not only make himself void, but can also turn people into nothingness within a certain range, and then kill the opponent quickly. How can anyone beat this? At this moment, everyone in the mutant underground organization had expectations in their eyes, expecting that the leader would crush the young man to death easily like an ant. The more special this young man appears, the more fame their leader will gain after he dies, and the more others will fear their leader. Henrik's uninjured appearance really made the surrounding people uncontrollably shocked. How come there are two of them so strong? Is this guy a mutant too? Fortunately, with this guy, at least we are more certain to win. While everyone was talking about it, Colonel Karg, who knew some secret information, suddenly had a look of fear in his eyes. The power of nothingness. It's really scary. Glancing at the young man hovering quietly in the sky, and then at Henrik who was full of disdain, he began to gloat a little. Although that boy looked very strong, he was definitely not as strong as Henrik. In the state of nothingness, the opponent is not affected by any attacks at all, and can also launch attacks. What will the boy use to fight? Even the so-called light that destroys everything in the information is not useful to him. It can't be hit by any attack, and the so-called terrifying power is just a joke. The next moment, he seemed to have seen the scene where the young man's figure turned into nothingness and then died tragically. At this moment, others were also looking forward to seeing the mutant fugitive die tragically at the hands of the man in black. Aren't you very strong, little one? If you dare to offend my organization, you are seeking death. I will help you now. Henrik smiled evilly and strode towards Su Yao. Su Yao frowned slightly. Is this guy immune to physical and energy attacks? Almost invincible. He even doubted that even black particles might not be able to harm this guy. Before he could think more, he suddenly felt something was wrong. Run. Venom's voice was full of panic. I saw that his body had become transparent at some point, as if it would dissipate in the next second. Feeling the crisis, Su Yao subconsciously used the castrated version of Sunshine. Experience of Sunshine +1. The light bloomed on him, set against the dark clouds, as if a god had descended. But at this moment, the virtual state of his body inexplicably faded under the power of the sun. Venom's frightened screams suddenly stopped, feeling unbelievable. Henrik, who had stopped not far away with a smile on his face and was ready to wait for the result, froze. What have you done? He couldn't believe that Shui Hua, who had always been invincible, would one day fail. No one can survive in a state of nothingness, not even you. Kid, what the hell are you? At this time, he even forgot to call the little thing, and only the feeling of astonishment remained in his heart. Far away, more than a dozen people in the mutant underground organization were immediately shocked. Looking at the young man shining brightly in the sky, they couldn't believe what they saw. Shouldn't the young man turn into nothingness like a bubble and be crushed to death by the leader as easily as an ant? How could such a scene happen? Has the leader's ability failed? How can it be? Not only were they stunned, Colonel Card's eyes were also filled with anticipation. This light. Suddenly, he seemed to remember something. His face showed panic at first, and then quickly relaxed. I'm at least 60 meters away from that guy now. His light shouldn't be able to shine here. Recalling the information in the document, he was relieved, but also felt that the other party was not worthy of his name. The light that destroys everything looks ordinary. That's all. He looked suspicious and glanced at the light on the young man in the sky, feeling that the person who provided the information was boasting too much. Even Su Yao was a little surprised. The state of nothingness was actually eliminated by the sunshine. He was still thinking about whether to try space transfer. Is it nothingness? Su Yao was thoughtful. At this time, he noticed that the guy who seemed to be the commander gave the order to continue the attack. Suddenly, dozens of rocket launchers and firearms were pointed at him. Su Yao frowned. Unless space transfer is used, the rebound shield may not be able to catch it in this situation. He had noticed before that when so many rockets were received, several rebound shields had faintly collapsed, and it felt like they had reached their upper limit. If this was a hard connection, it is estimated that the rebound shield would be broken immediately, and then his fragile body would be overwhelmed by the gunfire, and he would die without knowing how. After all, the rebound shield only has 3 levels, and it is already very powerful to be able to block so many rockets. The level limit is here, there is no upper limit on defense. He took a quick look at how close those people were to him. At this time, there were rockets and bullets, and at the same time, there were also rockets from high-altitude helicopters about to bomb down. Looking from a distance, they are so densely packed that you can't even count them at once. With this kind of formation, even the streets can be plowed several times. The people around him were looking forward to it again. Being surrounded by so much artillery fire, he had to die this time, right? Looking at the young man in the air, his black clothes are floating in the wind, and he is still emitting light, like all things in God. Countless people had to admit at this moment that they felt fear in their hearts. Why is there such a freak? Such monstrous mutants should die. Die, little thing. Henrik's eyes were ferocious. Those who can resist his void power don't need to live at all. As for his figure being within the range of artillery fire, he was not worried at all. With his state of nothingness, no attack can harm him. Henrik looked confident. At this moment, countless people looked forward to it, as if they had already seen the tragic death of the young man. However, a scene that shocked them appeared. It was past 11 o'clock at noon, the wind was howling, and the sky was overcast. When the dense artillery fire was fired one after another, infinite light bloomed from Su Yao's body. Countless people saw it, and the sun suddenly brightened in the dim sky. The rest of the area was extremely dark, except for the dazzling sunlight within a few dozen meters centered on the boy. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Bullets and rockets were flying in the air. Under the astonished eyes of countless people, the rockets were enveloped in light before they hit their targets. Under the rays of the third-level sunlight, the rocket casing was decomposed and detonated in advance. Boom boom boom. Suddenly, fireworks exploded in the sky around the boy. As for those bullets, they were also decomposed by the rays of sunlight. The further forward and closer to Su Yao, the more light the bullets illuminated, and for a while they began to decompose one after another. One by one, they turned into particles, and then turned into nothingness. Before the bullets could reach Su Yao, they had already disappeared without a trace. This shocking scene made everyone's expressions freeze. The boy in the sky is like a god, releasing light to destroy everything. It's majestic and suffocating. The ethereal accompanying music suddenly became urgent, and an atmosphere of tension and panic filled the surroundings. When they thought it was just like this, the light had already shined on them. By the time they reacted, it was already too late. Ah, my body. Under the irradiation of light, their clothes, firearms, rocket launchers and flesh began to turn into particles. Particle dust is flying all over the sky. Then these particles returned to nothingness and disappeared. This range is impossible. Feeling his body begin to decompose, Colonel Karg was in disbelief. The information clearly shows that this light is only 20 or 30 meters away, but now it actually shines to 60 meters away. So this is the light that destroys everything. At the last moment, all he could see was the figure floating in the sky and releasing infinite light. Godlike and terrifying. Can humans really defeat this kind of monster? At the last moment of his death, there was no joy in his heart anymore, only despair, anger and unwillingness. He knew that this mutant was not something he could kill, and he was just wishful thinking before. He laughed at himself, and then his whole person turned into ashes under the light. Not only him, but every soldier within the scope of the light at this moment, as well as Henrik, who was grinning ferociously, were also facing a similar situation. My void power. Henrik's eyes were dull, and the ferocious smile he once had was no longer confident. He didn't want to believe that the void power that he was so proud of, which could resist any attack, would actually fail under this strange light. I am invincible. No, this is all an illusion. Henrik's face showed shock, despair, and unwillingness. He wanted to roar, struggled, and tried to mobilize the power of nothingness to resist, but, under the light, he only delayed it for some time. No, phew. A strong wind blew. In unwillingness and despair, his whole body turned into flying ash particles and scattered. The light enveloped everything within a few dozen meters. When everything calmed down and the light gradually dimmed, everyone outside the range of the light was left in a daze. In their eyes, almost all the soldiers, Colonel Karg, and the strong-looking man in black, were all dead. The residents who were watching were almost pissed at this moment, and some even fell to the ground with frightened faces and weak legs. Monster, freak, as this god. Looking at the majestic god-like boy who was still faintly glowing in the sky, they no longer dared to look directly at him at this moment, and lowered their heads subconsciously for fear that the monster would notice them. The leader is dead. Impossible. The power of the leader. The members of the mutant underground organization were pale at this moment, and there was only shock in their hearts. Someone murmured to themselves, everything is gone. This kind of power. Is he really a mutant? The mutants' minds went blank. They had never seen such a terrifying guy. While all the survivors were in disbelief, Suyao was frowning. As soon as sunshine was cast, the light energy in his body was empty again. If it weren't for the fact that floating flight consumes almost no light energy within a certain height range and is a constant effect, he might have fallen to the ground now. Sure enough, you can't just use it when the sun shines. Feeling the dry light energy in his body and the dark clouds above his head, Suyao shook his head. Thinking about it, he quickly glanced around and found that after the sun-drenched sweep, almost all the enemies had disappeared. As for the rest, he frowned slightly as he stared at the dozen or so soldiers scattered around the periphery. Didn't everything get cleaned up? And those people? He continued to frown as he stared at the dozen or so suspected mutants. Before he could think of countermeasures and how to deal with these people, a soldier fired uncontrollably at him in panic. The bullet spun and shot towards Suyao's chest at the speed of sound. Fortunately, at the critical moment, Venom sensed the crisis in advance, and a layer of black liquid covered his chest. Boom! The bullet seemed to be shot into Newtonian liquid. It just advanced a little and then stopped moving, being stopped abruptly by the venom. Suyao's expression changed slightly. Fortunately, the venom blocked it. Staring at the soldier who fired, Suyao glanced at the vaguely agitated mutants from the corner of his eye, felt a little light energy restored in his body, and immediately made a decision in his heart. The next second, he quickly flew over the soldier's head at the speed of an ordinary person, and then used black particles. Black particle experience +1. Because of the scarcity of energy, the black particles shrunk from level 3 to level 1 quickly penetrated the soldier's heart. Then, he ignored the fallen soldier and flew away in full view of everyone. Affected by his momentum and the terrifying scene before, no one dared to step forward to stop him and successfully made him leave here. In the eyes of the onlookers, as well as a dozen mutants, they all felt that the young man was tired of killing and didn't bother to look at them again. Phew, this freak is finally gone. It's so scary. He just looked at me and I almost thought I was going to die. Me too. At this moment, their hearts were filled with joy and fear of Su Yao. The more they recalled the horrific scene that had just passed, the more frightened they became and their whole bodies were trembling. In the ranks of the mutant underground. Let's go back. The woman in bright red clothes gritted her teeth. The leader is dead. Let's go back and discuss countermeasures with the others. The other members nodded silently. As they left, the remaining 10 soldiers and the onlookers looked at each other in confusion. Eventually, they also left here. However, now that they have left, the impact of this battle is fermenting rapidly. Time passed quickly, and 2 hours passed quickly. News of the recent battle gradually spread. Brotherhood of Mutants. At this moment, Magneto Eric was sitting on a chair, with several of his men beside him. At this time, Eric frowned. I don't know, how is that child doing? Thinking about it, he felt a little pity. Although an armed team of hundreds of people was nothing to him, it was still too difficult for the teenager to face. And it's not just the armed forces. If it weren't for the guy named Henrik, maybe he wouldn't think so. With that guy here, it becomes almost impossible for the boy to escape. What is more likely, is that he is probably dead now. He had been thinking before that maybe he would receive news of the boy's death soon. Just when he was feeling regretful, a blue-skinned mutant ran in, and it turned out to be Mystique. Before he could ask, Raven said in shock, Eric, you must not have imagined what I found. Huh, Magneto King Eric looked at her in surprise, wondering why she was making such a fuss. Raven, what's wrong? That child is not dead. Mystique Raven said urgently. Not dead. Magneto Eric was confused at first, and then quickly realized who he was talking about. His eyes were full of surprise, and he said unexpectedly, run away. How did you run away? Not only was he surprised, the faces of several men and women next to him also showed surprise. Can this run? Is that young man so lucky? Didn't run away. Mystique Raven shook her head and said something that shocked them, that kid killed almost everyone. Including that Henrik. The words fell. Raven, what did you say? Killed almost everyone, and that Henrik. Did we hear correctly? Both those men and Magneto Eric were a little stunned at this moment, doubting what they heard at this moment. What is Raven talking about? Not only killing hundreds of well-armed soldiers, but also killing Henrik, the leader of the underground organization who just described as being very powerful. Are you sure you got it right? That was a figure comparable to the Black Emperor Sebastian Shaw, and he died so easily. Not to mention that Magneto didn't believe it. Several of his men didn't believe it either at the moment. Mystique Raven said softly, this incident has a great impact. I have confirmed several times that they are indeed dead. When Magneto King Eric and others heard this, their eyes suddenly showed shock and amazement. How did they die? Mystique Raven hesitated for a moment and briefly described the process at that time. When they heard that the young man could not only fly, but also use light to destroy those people, they were shocked and confused. Several of his subordinates glanced at Magneto subconsciously, knowing that among them, Magneto was the only one who could fly. And that boy could not only fly, but also use light to kill almost everyone. It's light again, what on earth is that? They heard last time that the young man used light to kill many people. Most of them didn't take it seriously when they heard it last time. At most, they were a little curious. Now I heard that he used light again and killed nearly 100 soldiers, even the powerful Henrik. At this moment, even those who didn't pay much attention to it became solemn and curious at the same time. What does that light look like, and why is its power so terrifying? They couldn't help but want to see that light. Their thoughts were racing here, and Magneto Eric was shocked for a while before he calmed down. After calming down, he was still surprised by the power of the light. What kind of mutant ability is so powerful? Level 4. Suddenly, an idea came to Magneto Eric's mind. Could it be that the Omega mutant that Guy Charles said is this boy? He couldn't help but think otherwise. Not long ago, Charles suddenly discovered an unknown Omega mutant, and now there was such a prominent child. The two may not be unrelated. After thinking about it, he shook his head again, feeling that his thoughts were a bit arbitrary. If it was really an Omega mutant, then the boy wouldn't have been chased so hard. Judging from the power he has shown so far, it has not reached the level that Charles said he could bring about unimaginable disasters. Magneto Eric shook his head in amusement, feeling that he really thought too much. A powerful 4th-level mutant appeared randomly, and he actually thought of him as an Omega mutant. If anyone could be an Omega mutant, then Omega mutants would not be so rare and would be almost non-existent. This is the ultimate existence among mutants and the ultimate threat to mankind. Of course, even though that boy is not an Omega mutant, there is definitely a level 4 mutant, and it is worthy of attention. Magneto Eric's eyes flashed, and he immediately ordered Mystique to increase her efforts to find the boy. The Brotherhood of Mutants found out the news, and the X-Men did not fall behind either, and soon learned the outcome of the battle. All dead, Scott said in shock. Chin, Aurora, and Scott looked at each other, all of them unable to hide the shock in their eyes. They were still thinking about how the young man could escape in the hands of hundreds of armed soldiers and Henrik. It would be better if he didn't die on the spot. But now tell them, the soldiers who made them all feel troublesome died like this. Or did he die at the hands of a boy they thought would die? At this moment, they had to be shocked. Is it the light again? When they were surprised, the atmosphere in base number 23 was extremely dull at the moment. All dead. Alessandro had a sullen face and looked straight at the Marco prison guard. Guard Mako nodded tremblingly. Alessandro clutched his chest and almost fell down. So many people died. The kid who was ignored by him at first and thought he could solve it by paying some price has exceeded his expectations time and time again, and even more so now. After listening to Marco prison guard's detailed account, Alessandro couldn't believe it. That kid is really invincible, has no limits, and can he exceed the limits again and again? Alessandro gritted his teeth. I don't believe it, he must have a limit. At this time, the Mako prison guard hesitated, took out a laptop, clicked on the video above, and said, "Sir, this video may be useful to you." Base Commander Alessandro was stunned and looked at it subconsciously. What was played in the video was the scene when Suyao released his light. Just looking at it, Alessandro felt a little shuddered and felt deep pressure. But as he looked at it, his eyes suddenly lit up. This is. I saw that in the picture, the light did not surround all places. A few soldiers, onlookers, and even the mutants were not covered. What does that mean? Alessandro was a little excited. He believed that if that kid could do it, he would definitely kill everyone, especially those mutants. But he didn't. The light was always fixed within a certain range and did not surround them. What this meant was very clear. That kid has a limit, and he can already see it. Maybe it might have been a disguise before, but it definitely couldn't be this time. Especially the scenes played next further supported his thoughts. The kid was suspended in the air and was almost shot by the soldier's gun. If the dark liquid hadn't appeared to help block it, he would have definitely been shot. His subsequent move to kill the soldier seemed to him to be just a bluff. If those soldiers had fired a few more shots, or those mutants had taken action, the kid would have definitely died. Okay. Alessandro smiled again. It turns out that the kid is not invincible. After all, he is still a human being and has his own limits. Relying on this video, he has basically guessed the real limit of that kid. Only, hundreds of soldiers died at once this time, and so many resources were lost. Even the congressmen behind him were unable to hold him back at this time. Not to mention, he still wants to send people to deal with that brat. But Alessandro's eyes were dark. Allowing Irina to broadcast the show was definitely the right move he made. Under the pressure of discussion and its own face, the government has no choice but to continue sending troops and resources. Who does that kid think he's against? Me? No, all of America. Base Commander Alessandro chuckled. Just a little mutant, but he still wants to go against the entire big country of the United States. Not to mention the large number of armed soldiers, but the tactical nuclear bombs and other things can make that kid know how powerful he is. Really looking for death. Alessandro smiled, already thinking about the kid's final outcome. The final outcome is nothing more than being captured, or even worse, death. There is no third possibility. Of course, although the government will definitely take action in the end, its end will definitely not be much better when the time comes. Oh, I have to give them some benefits. Alessandro sneered slightly. Suddenly, he thought of something and his eyes lit up. That kid. He looked at Marco attentively and asked, "Have you found the kid's body tissue?" "Sir, are you going to Prison guard Mako understood something immediately. Using that Kevin's cells for experiments. As a base famous for experiments, what else can it be besides conducting experiments? Yes, Alessandro nodded and smiled. That kid is so powerful and his body must be very special. If we obtain his body tissue, we will definitely be able to study something. And that kid has a very serious form of cancer, and he's still not dead yet. He must have a very special body. If something is researched by then the kid won't even think about running away. He will become a guinea pig in our laboratory. Prison guard Marco's eyes were bright, and he couldn't help but look forward to that scene. The corner of Alessandro's lips slightly hooked. The Sentinel robot is almost fully developed. By then, he couldn't wait to see the kid being arrested or dead in the near future. Alessandro in Base 23 was planning things here, and soon Irina was also worried. Why does this kind of thing always happen to me? Irina, who was wearing cyan clothes, had a tone full of complaints. The government department failed again. How can she explain this to the viewers and netizens? Is it possible or not to tell the truth? Irina wondered if some netizens would break into her home and burn her to death. Fortunately, she didn't worry for long before her boss called and asked her to try her best to cover up the matter. 2.5 hours later, Wolverine, Logan and others, who were taking shelter from the rain while looking for someone, couldn't help but stop and looked at the big screen in the street square. A woman they were very familiar with appeared on the screen, and it was the host Irina. At this time, Irina was wearing blue short sleeves and shorts, standing very coolly on the stage, and said with a smile, "Good afternoon, audience friends, I am your old friend Irina. Today, I am here to tell you some unfortunate news. Due to the sudden incident, the relevant departments have temporarily cancelled the operation to capture the mutant fugitives and decided to proceed after sufficient preparations are made." After hearing what she said, not to mention Wolverine, Logan and others were stunned. The audience who were fully expecting to capture the mutant boy Kevin were also stunned and angry. "You, Irina, you fool, you trash host, you are the trashiest I have ever seen, no second. Trick us." Just when the audience and netizens were angry, Irina hurriedly explained, saying, "Don't get me wrong, the operation is not cancelled, it is just postponed temporarily. In order to act more confidently, the relevant departments have applied for more sufficient weapons and troops. These take time to deploy, so the preparation time is longer. So don't worry, everyone, the operation will start as usual in a short time, and it will definitely not fail." Hearing what she said, American viewers and netizens seemed to understand, and couldn't help but believe it. At the same time, they were even more looking forward to the so-called actions that followed. With so much preparation, the mutant boy will definitely be arrested. Everyone became interested again and had expectations in their hearts, looking forward to preparing more adequate arrests in the future. On the street, Wolverine, Logan and the others looked at each other, worried and surprised. Worry means worrying about a more serious arrest in the future, while suspicion means a vague feeling that something is wrong. "Let's investigate," Otto suggested. Logan and others nodded in agreement. While they were carrying out the operation, people from the government department were also processing traces and preventing information from leaking. Boom. The sky was covered with dark clouds and heavy rain continued to fall. "With this weather, how long do I have to collect energy points?" Su Yao shook his head. After leaving the battlefield, he originally planned to continue collecting energy points today, and then continue to unlock progress to see what would happen next. Venom emerged from his right hand. "Su, you are really too strong." There was excitement in Venom's voice. "I just said that the two of us are invincible, no one is our opponent." He felt that he was so lucky to meet such a powerful host. As for the original half-body, Venom looked disdainful. He must be still running for his life with that man, that's really unfortunate, hee. Su Yao glanced at him, twitched the corner of his mouth, and said, "You are too arrogant. You have never seen a strong person. Su, where are the people you keep talking about who are strong? I haven't seen them before. They are not as strong as you." Venomous Liquid didn't believe him at all and thought he was being modest. Su Yao shook his head and hid from the rain while talking to Venom. Time flies. The icy heavy rain continued until noon the next day. The sun gradually appeared in the sky, and the bright sunlight shone down, bringing out a string of rainbows. The warm sunlight shone on his body, and Su Yao's energy points continued to grow. Light energy +1. Light energy +1. Light energy +1. Unlocking progress 90%. Su Yao casually added the remaining energy points into it and found that the unlocking progress had not moved at all. Su Yao shook his head. The next second, he turned around and left here to avoid being found again. Soon, the sun set and the sky became dark, and Su Yao's energy point increased again. Energy points, 6,101. After a quick glance, Su Yao did not continue to add more, but decided to save more and add more. While he was constantly collecting energy points and avoiding some covert tracking. At this moment, in the dark and silent space, a large ball of strange red energy is rapidly approaching the Earth. A staff member of NASA, the Aeronautics and Space Administration, looked at the display screen in front of him and said in surprise to the contact headset, "Everyone, please pay attention, my satellite has detected some anomalies." Hearing his voice, both the space agency staff walking around and some people processing data all turned their attention to him at this moment. Many people walked behind him and looked at the abnormality displayed on the screen. I saw a large group of strange things gradually appearing on the radar screen, and it was rapidly approaching the Earth. In space, the energy group glowed red and looked like solar wind or nebula. As the satellite camera moved over and saw this strange red energy more clearly, the staff exclaimed, "What is this? Is it a solar flash? The detected heat value has exceeded the limit. I bought it." The staff were shocked to see it. They anxiously wanted to report this matter, but unfortunately before they could do anything, the red energy was already extremely close to the Earth. The huge red energy group approached the Earth's atmosphere and rushed straight in one direction. Hoo-hoo! The fierce wind roared, and countless clouds were blown away and wiped out. Soon, the huge energy group approached the United States, but just when it was about to move in a certain direction, it seemed to sense some movement and paused for a moment, seeming a little hesitant. But in the end, it rushed towards its original goal. Dazzling red light shone in the night sky, and countless passers-by exclaimed, "God, what is this? Newly developed energy weapon attack. It looks like it's coming towards us, run." Passers-by were frightened, thinking it was an attack by some energy weapon, and ran away in a hurry. That is to say, this ball of blazing red energy did not find them, otherwise they would not be able to run away based on their speed, and they would turn into ashes in minutes. 2 kilometers away from here, on the rooftop of a tall building, Su Yao frowned nervously and stared at the red energy ball from a distance. What a terrible thing. What is this? Venom was so scared that his teeth almost fell out and his mouth opened wide. Su Yao was also a little frightened, feeling a strong threat from the glowing red energy. That direction is. He looked over. 2 kilometers away. Cyclops Scott, Chin, and Aurora, who were looking for someone, looked at the sky solemnly. "Run, it seems to be flying towards us," Cyclops Scott said hurriedly. With that said, he took the piano and ran forward, followed closely by Storm Girl Aurora. However, what makes them despair is that no matter how hard they run, they can't escape. The red energy seems to have identified them and is still flying towards them unswervingly. "You guys go quickly." Suddenly, Jean took her hand away from Cyclops. Facing the surprised looks of the two people, Chin hesitated for a moment and said, "I can feel that its target is me." "Jin, no, you." Cyclops Scott refused without thinking. Unfortunately, before he could finish his words, they saw that the dazzling red energy was extremely close, so close that they could feel the heat it radiated. Chin didn't think too much and directly used telekinesis, that is, telekinesis, to push Cyclops and Storm away from a distance. As soon as it was pushed away to 100 meters away, the ball of radiant red energy was already approaching. "Chin!" Cyclops and Storm exclaimed. Chin put his hands in front of him to resist, and the surging mental power filled the front, trying to resist the invasion of red energy. Phew! The wind howled and the sound of burning sounded. The Yaohong energy was resisted for a while, but it was too strong. Faced with a steady stream of attacks, even if her telepathy was very powerful, she would not be able to sustain it at this moment. A shout came out of Chin's mouth, and then he was engulfed in red energy. Chin, Cyclops and Scott, who were hiding behind the building to resist the aftermath of the energy, couldn't help but look sad when they saw this scene. "Chin is dead," Not long after they were sad, they suddenly saw an astonishing scene. The huge glowing red energy group in the distance suddenly shrank inwards. It was as if something was absorbing it, and it disappeared in a short time. Chin floated in the air, and wisps of red energy continued to pour into her body. During the process, some of her clothes and flesh seemed to be wiped out, and then she recovered, which looked very strange. At the last moment, the red energy formed a pair of wings in the air, like a phoenix reborn from nirvana. Phew! In the next second, all the energy contracted into Chin's body. Chin slowly fell to the ground. Chin, seeing that she had stopped, Cyclops and Scott hurried over. Chin, wake up, are you okay? Scott called to her. After a while, Chin slowly opened her eyes. After feeling it, she said confusedly, I'm fine. What just happened to me? As Scott spoke, Jean's beautiful eyebrows wrinkled. Let's go back and let the professor check it for you. Storm Aurora said. The three of them left here in a hurry. 2 kilometers away, looking at the disappearing red phoenix, Suyao muttered to himself under Venom's doubtful gaze, is it the power of the phoenix? Originally, he might not have known what it was. After all, Marvel had so much red energy, who knew what it was? However, if it is shaped like a phoenix, then there is only that one, which is the Phoenix Force, one of Marvel's 3 ancient powers. In Marvel, it is a power that is often compared to chaos magic. Suyao frowned and thought, it's strange. Doesn't the Phoenix girl already have the power of the Phoenix? What is this? He began to think. Soon, he figured out what was going on. In X-Men Dark Phoenix, the Phoenix Force did appear in space. At that time, the Phoenix power was indeed attracted by Chin and took the initiative to possess her. As for why Chin had traces of the Phoenix Force on her body early in the morning, he had some guesses. The Phoenix Force has never been complete, it always exists in the form of fragments. Either this is another fragment, or this fragment has been linked to Chin a long time ago. Flying here from the depths of the universe is just for better integration. It is really not that difficult to do this for the abstract power of the universe to materialize, that is, to be a symbol of mind and life. As for why the Phoenix Force chose Chin, that's easier to understand. Suyao pondered. The Phoenix Force prefers people with strong mental powers. Although Zongchen's performance in the X-Men is mediocre, her mental power is definitely one of the strongest among humans. Not even Professor. It's just that compared to Professor. According to the plot, as the Phoenix power in her body gradually awakened, she once again lost control of her abilities and transformed into the Dark Phoenix. Thinking of the Dark Phoenix, Suyao's face became a little solemn. Chin transformed into the Dark Phoenix, or Chin awakened her second personality, and her spiritual power increased so much that even Professor X could only end up dead in the plot. Now that the Phoenix power has suddenly arrived, is it going to be dark? Suyao pondered and had to start thinking about his chances of winning if he faced the Dark Phoenix. After all, compared to the gentleness of his master Jie Chin, Black Phoenix is simply a bit crazy. Who knows what he will do, if he suddenly kills him? After some estimation, Suyao shook his head, not feeling very sure. I can only take advantage of this period of time to become stronger. I just hope that Dark Phoenix will not turn dark so quickly and won't cause trouble. In addition to these, Suyao also felt that the timeline was a bit confusing. Dark Phoenix is supposed to be about reversing the future. After the timeline is refreshed, things in the apocalypse line and the situation of mutants are not as bad as they are now. Forget it, Marvel is already a mess, and with my influence. Suyao shook his head and didn't think much more. He was floating in the air, gaining experience in floating flight, and absorbing light energy. Floating flight experience +1. Light energy +1. He worked hard to develop here, and after a while, the Cyclops who returned to X Academy were testing the body of Phoenix Girl. After a while of testing, they found nothing wrong except that the energy on Chin's body exploded. Chin, how are you feeling? Professor X asked, sitting in a wheelchair. Chin felt it and said hesitantly, I don't know how to describe it. That feeling has never happened before. I feel good, as if everything has been activated. Cyclops, Scott and others breathed a sigh of relief, while Professor Jin, let me check this. Professor X put his hand on Chin's head, then closed his eyes and used his psychic ability to check. But as soon as the psychic ability entered Chin's head, Chin's expression changed slightly, and then she said slightly ferociously, "Get out of my brain." As soon as he finished speaking, invisible power of thought surged out, and he immediately pushed Professor X away fiercely. With a bang, the professor fell hard to the ground as the wheelchair fell to the ground. The surrounding ornaments and other objects were also scattered everywhere by the power of thought. Chin, Professor, Beast, Scott and others exclaimed. Professor X Charles stood up and said, "I'm fine." Then, he looked at Chin. Being stared at by pairs of eyes, Phoenix Girl Chin, who had returned to normal, said in a panic, "I don't know what happened." Just when the X-Men were in chaos. In the dark night sky, 3 groups of white light were suspended. Looking carefully through the halo, one can clearly see 3 alien spacecraft. Boom boom boom. The 3 spaceships quickly fell towards the river. Woof woof woof. A household was having a party, and suddenly the golden retriever outside the house started barking. "I'm going to see Luna," said a beautiful woman with white blonde hair in a white dress. The companions said with laughter, "Go quickly. Remember not to let it bark again." Margaret smiled apologetically, got up and walked outside the house. In the dim woods, Margaret searched for a while and soon found Luna, who was barking. "Luna, what's wrong with you? Be good, dog, stop barking." She stroked Luna and tried to comfort it, but unfortunately, no matter how she comforted it, Luna still barked forward. Margaret looked confused and stood up and walked cautiously over there. As soon as she took a few steps closer, she felt frightened and backed away in panic. From the dark woods, gray humanoid creatures with withered skin and mummy-like shapes came out. A scream rang out, and silence returned to the woods. The gray humanoid gradually transformed into the woman named Margaret and walked towards where the party was being held. Behind her is a gray alien. Soon, the party venue became quiet, and the gray aliens were all disguised as humans. If Su Yao were here, he would probably recognize who they are at a glance. Surprisingly, they are the Dabali people living on the planet Dabali. Because the Phoenix Force inadvertently destroyed their planet while flying to the Earth, unwilling to do so, the remaining people wanted to get the Phoenix Force, so they followed the Phoenix Force's trajectory and found the Earth. Time passed quickly, and 5 days passed quickly. In the past 5 days, Phoenix Girl's condition has become more and more unstable. Because of the second personality, Professor X and others are very worried. Even, the last one was not careful, and Chin ran out of X Academy and disappeared without a trace. Night. While the X-Men were looking for Jean, the Dabali aliens also gathered together. Margaret, disguised as a Dabali, slowly got out of a black car and walked towards a tall black man in black clothes not far ahead. Next to the tall black man, there was a group of people who were also Dabali people. Are these the only people left in the Dabali Empire? Margaret glanced at the surrounding companions disguised as humans. Seeing her approaching, the tall black man said her real name, "Hello Vuk, have you mastered the language of the people on Earth?" "It's a piece of cake," Margaret said nonchalantly. She asked, "What did you find?" The black man thought for a while and said, "That power is contained within one of them. It's actually a primitive species." When Margaret heard this, her face was a little surprised, as if she couldn't believe that that power would choose the weak humans on Earth. The black man explained, "She is more powerful, she is a mutant." Margaret was thoughtful when she heard that it was a mutant. During this time, she also discovered that there were some so-called mutants on this Earth, but their strength was average, at least not comparable to hers. Then, the black companion said that the human being was not aware of it and did not know what her power was. When Margaret heard this, she immediately felt good. "I can take advantage of this. If we can control this power, we can resurrect our people, revive civilization, and..." She glanced around and whispered, "Rule here." Margaret continued, "Where is she?" "In a tavern." Jean was sitting in a chair drinking wine. However, in the eyes of others, she is an old man because she uses her psychic powers to distort other people's minds. At this time, a woman with long white blonde hair walked into the tavern and slowly approached the Phoenix Girl. Sitting on the chair next to Chin, Margaret whispered, "Hello, Chin." Chin stopped drinking and looked at her, subconsciously wanting to use her psychic power. After looking at her, Margaret said calmly, "You can't control my mind. I'm different from them." With that said, she also asked the bartender for a glass of wine. How did you find me? Chin wondered. I have connections in the government. Who are you? Margaret turned to look at her. What you should ask more is, who are you? Are you a panicked little girl who obeys the dictates of a man in a wheelchair, or are you the most special and powerful being on the planet? She stared at Jean in admiration. Are you afraid of the power within you? Are you afraid because you think this kind of power will breed evil? Will it make you lose control? She smiled and said, maybe this is your nature, stop suppressing yourself, Chin. You have always been disciplined and told to be a good girl, but these teachings were created by men with limited thinking in ancient times. They can't understand how powerful you are, and neither can your X-Men teammates. Chin was startled. An hour later, Chin followed her to a luxurious residence. As soon as she entered, Chin saw 4 people waiting inside, who seemed not to be afraid of her. Do they know who I am? Aren't they afraid of me? Jean asked over her shoulder. Margaret laughed funny and said as she went upstairs, you are the only one here who is afraid of your own powers. Jean followed Margaret upstairs. When she went up, the tall black man said in a deep voice, gather the others. If she can't control it, destroy it. Margaret entered a room with Jean. Looking at the ordinary room in front of her, Chin asked doubtfully, why did you bring me here? Let me show you a sight. Margaret raised her hand, and the surrounding environment quickly changed, turning into a beautiful scene of the cosmic starry sky. Margaret slowly explained, you still remember what happened not long ago, right? What enters your body is a strange power, and this is not an accident. This power is attracted to you. What is it? Chin was confused. A cosmic energy of unparalleled power and purity. She turned to look at the transformed red energy and said, we saw this power entering your body. We were following this power at the time and saw it with our own eyes, Chin. Chin was even more confused. Why are you looking for it? Margaret exclaimed, because this is the spark of life that activates everything in the universe. This flame destroyed my planet. We survivors have been chasing it, trying to control this power, but this power caused destruction wherever it went, until. In the phantom picture in front of me, radiant red energy appeared, quickly destroying a beautiful planet along the way, which turned out to be the Dabali star. She paused before speaking, then turned to look at Chin, until it met you. Why? Chin was even more puzzled. She didn't understand why this energy was looking for her. Margaret stared at her very seriously, because you don't know how powerful you are. You are the most special existence on this planet. You are so talented that no one can compare to you, Chin. Her voice was full of admiration. The illusion faded and the environment returned to the room. Margaret continued to praise, everyone on this planet is beyond your reach, and they are afraid of the unknown that they cannot grasp. As long as they are afraid, will you find a way to destroy it? Chin said it for her. While Chin was talking to Margaret, far away from here, Wolverine Logan and others also found some information. There is indeed something wrong with what Irina said a few days ago. Otto said speechlessly. Chris, Logan and others next to them nodded. At this moment, their hearts were filled with shock. According to the information they received, not only was Sue fine, but he had even annihilated hundreds of soldiers, and even a powerful mutant. Is this little guy a monster? Wolverine Logan and others thought in disbelief. At the same time, they couldn't imagine what kind of power it would take to accomplish such a feat. Is he really a mutant? So strong. They were shocked here, and they were not the only ones to get the news. With the deliberate spread of the news by caring people, the news quickly spread throughout the entire internet, causing an uproar. Hundreds of soldiers laid siege, and all of them died. How did you do that? Are you kidding? Is the mutant boy still a human? Early the next morning, the incident spread widely, and the news was even broadcast on television. In the luxurious living room, the tall black man was watching the TV and happened to reach here. Who is he? Margaret, who was passing by with Chin, immediately looked at the TV and asked. Thank you to all bosses for your monthly votes, recommendation votes, and rewards. There are too many, so take some and put them on. Jean and Margaret, along with the rest of the Dabali people, stared at the television. I saw the middle-aged female host above speaking fiercely, saying that the government had deceived them and covered up the fact of failure. According to reliable sources, the government sent hundreds of soldiers this time. Each soldier carried a large number of weapons, and even a large number of rocket launchers. However, according to our findings, this operation by the government department failed. That's hundreds of soldiers, but they can't even defeat a mutant child. We have reason to wonder if that department is incompetent, or they don't take this matter seriously. At this moment, netizens and viewers from all over the world were also shocked. 100 soldiers armed with thermal weapons were encircling and suppressing, but they couldn't kill a single mutant. They were shocked and incredulous, and doubted the authenticity of this incident. Anyone with a little sense has no reason to believe such outrageous rumors. So many people used hot weapons to besiege them, but they were told that they failed. Who believes it? Anyway, most people don't believe that the mutant kid can do this. He's not Superman, can he kill so many people? Some people even speculated whether this was self-directed by government departments. At this moment, a bunch of questioning messages appeared on Irina's live show website. What happened to Irina? You said that the government departments were making better preparations, but the fact is that the operation failed. Tell us if this is true or not. Come out. Faced with these questioning messages, the host Irina almost lost her hair and didn't know how to deal with it. Fortunately, after the boss's order came down, she immediately posted a message. The government departments will launch new operations in the next 2 days. Please trust the government. That mutant boy will never escape. A day or two. Seeing the news she sent out, the audience and netizens couldn't help but hesitate a little, and chose to believe it for the time being. Inside the luxurious living room, Margaret listened to the host's speech with a look of surprise on her face. Among you mutants, is there anyone so strong? The other Dabali people around also nodded in agreement and felt incredible at the same time. How could a primitive species be so powerful? Even if they are surrounded by the firepower that the host said, they may not be able to do better, and their lives may even be in danger. So, how does a mutant from the original species do this? At this time, Chin looked at the news playing on the TV and said, I know him. His eyes were on her one after another. Chin explained a little, he is very powerful and has great potential. Our X-Men have been looking for him before, hoping to draw him into the X-Men. Margaret heard the words and smiled, we can't just believe one-sided words. The young mutant you talk about may not have actually done these things. Chin, you don't have to worry about him. Compared to a mutant like him, you are the strongest and most special. I've told you before, you're incredibly talented, Jean. They can't reach you. Margaret smiled. Hearing this, the people in Dabali next to her spoke up and agreed with her words. Margaret is right, you are the most special one. While Margaret and Jean were talking, Wolverine Logan brought Chris and others to the X Academy. They wanted to help Sue with the help of Professor X and others. Logan, why are you back? Storm asked in surprise at the gate of the academy. As she said that, she glanced at Chris and the others again, with a little vigilance in her eyes. Logan quickly explained the reason why they came. However, what surprised them was that after listening to what Logan said, Storm shook her head and said, we are also looking for that child, but we can't find it yet. He is difficult to find. She paused and sighed, and we are currently having a headache about Chin, so we don't have the energy to find the child. Hearing that something happened to Chin, Wolverine Logan was startled and asked quickly, Chin? What happened to Chin? We suspect that she has developed a second personality. That personality is very violent. Storm explained the cause of the matter and told about Chin's disappearance. As Storm told the story, Logan and others looked at each other. In the end, they chose to stay in X College to see if they could help. While Wolverine and others were busy, at this moment, the surprise sounds of researchers came from a strict research institute. Dr. Bolivar, we succeeded. Ha ha. A dozen researchers in white clothes were standing in front of a robot with excited faces. It is tall and thin, and its body is pitch black. Its skin is made up of tiny scales, just like fish scales. The overall look is a bit dark and scary. Next to the short Dr. Bolivar, Alessandro, the base commander of Base 23, looked at the artwork in front of him with admiration. He asked in amazement, Dr. Bolivar, is it really successful? What abilities does it probably have, and how did you research it? When Dr. Bolivar, who looked like a dwarf, Heard this, he turned to look at him and explained with a smile, "It's all thanks to the woman named Mystique from the Mutant Brotherhood. We researched and cracked her transformation gene, strengthened it, and blasted it with the sentry robot in front of us. Now it can not only transform at will, but also copy the mutant abilities of mutants. The copied abilities will be uploaded to the database for use by all sentry robots. Facing different mutants, it will use competing abilities to deal with them." Finally, Dr. Bolivar smiled, vaguely proud. For any mutant, it is the nemesis. After hearing what he said, Alessandro was surprised. So special. These sentry robots are monsters. Thinking about the picture in his mind, Alessandro felt a chill down his back. With these sentry robots, how can the mutants win? Maybe those powerful mutants could get away with defeating a few Sentinel robots, but what about facing a group of them? Sentry robots can be manufactured and shipped off the production line in a short time, and can be continuously replenished. Mutants, on the other hand, not only need to awaken the X gene, but also need to spend a lot of time mastering their abilities. At this moment, Alessandro seemed to have seen a scene in which mutants would become extinct in the future. Suddenly, a smile appeared on his face and he asked, "Dr. Bolivar, what do you think of mutants? Do you hate them? Otherwise, why would you think of developing sentry robots?" Dr. Bolivar said while observing the Sentinel robots, "No, on the contrary, I admire them quite a lot. I think mutants are our saviors, the enemies that can unite us humans to fight and fight together." As he spoke, he paused and said in a deep voice, "And the first enemy we deal with together is that teenage mutant. His existence has threatened the safety of the people and must be eliminated." Alessandro next to him heard this and showed a like-minded smile. It seemed that the kid's death was doomed. Facing a group of sentry robots that could copy abilities, it was impossible for him to deal with them. Sentinel robots are not soldiers. They don't feel pain or fear. They even have abilities that are equivalent to being surrounded by a group of mutants. Moreover, the government has recently decided to continue to attack the Little Devil. With the help of sentry robots, the Little Devil has almost no chance of survival. Once that brat is eliminated, it's time to eliminate all mutants. No mutant can escape. Alessandro smiled. Dr. Bolivar next to him sighed, "It's all thanks to that mutant. If he hadn't put pressure on those congressmen, the Sentinel robot plan wouldn't have succeeded so quickly." Alessandro nodded, and then asked, "Dr. Bolivar, when can the Sentinel robot go into battle?" Bolivar thought for a while and replied, "The production line is almost ready, and there are a lot of materials. It won't take long." "That's good." Alessandro smiled even more. Of course, although the production line is almost ready, some mutant genetic data are missing, which will lead to a lack of early capabilities of the Sentinel robots and an increase in the loss rate. To this end, Bolivar specially designed a small robot to approach mutants and then collect their genetic information. This small robot is also equipped with the locking system in the Sentinel robot's intelligence system. Under the locking system, no mutant can hide within 10 kilometers. With it, the variant data of the sentry robot will be greatly improved. And the X gene data from major laboratories can also bring considerable improvements to the Sentinel robot. Bolivar also believes that no mutant can escape the pursuit of the Sentinel robot. This elimination match between mutants and humans, it's time to end with the elimination of mutants. Of course, the first thing that needs to be done is to clean up the little mutant and bring about the first victory. Dr. Bolivar was in a good mood and turned around to deal with the production line. When something happened to the X-Men in Phoenix, and the government was preparing to take action, Suyao was feeling his own changes. A beep appears. Floating flight experience +1. The next second, the prompt continued to sound. Ability: floating flying 0/2000 level 4. Finally level 4. Feeling the surge of light energy in his body, Suyao breathed a sigh of relief. Originally, the floating flight should be upgraded faster, but due to the loud movement and the influence of people searching, it slowed down a lot. However, the speed is pretty good now, and it reached level 4 in just a few days. At this moment, as the sun shines on his body, the light energy in his body increases rapidly. After his recovery was full, Suyao made a silent calculation. The current light energy in the body has increased from being able to display third-level abilities more than 70 times to being able to display third-level abilities more than 100 times. Huge improvement all of a sudden. It can be said that now he can use his abilities to a certain extent. Of course, this refers to the situation when there is no siege. If there were too many, even he would be stretched thin. In addition to the huge increase in light energy, Su Yao found that the remaining lifespan of the panel had also been greatly improved. It has been promoted to the point of 140 days. Su Yao breathed a sigh of relief and focused on floating and flying. After upgrading, he found that the constant flight state was increased to 500 meters, and the speed. Phew, Su Yao's figure kept moving in the air, leaving behind afterimages. After testing, he found that the current flight speed has increased to the point where the human eye can only see afterimages, which can be said to be exaggerated. It's not bad, Su Yao commented in his mind. At this time, a little poisonous head appeared in his right hand. Su, why do I feel that you are getting stronger and stronger? Is this my imagination? He expressed his confusion. Why did Su seem to be getting stronger every time? He felt at a loss about this. Maybe it's your illusion, Su Yao said casually. Putting aside the point of floating and flying, Su Yao couldn't help but focus on the energy points. After these few days of collection, the energy points have skyrocketed, almost reaching 6 figures. Energy points. 65,326. It should be enough to bring the unlocking progress to 100%, right? I wonder what will happen. Su Yao had a hunch that the change would be huge. After enduring it for several days, he immediately added all the energy points to the unlocking progress. 90% unlock progress is a blur. Unlocking progress 99%. Su Yao frowned. Except for the 9% improvement in progress, other changes are almost unnoticeable. Equivalent to 9% unlocking progress, unlocking a loneliness. Su Yao was a little speechless and thought, it seems that he is really imitating the big snake in the game, alas. If it were a background snake imitated, it probably wouldn't be the only one with this ability. Of course, this is a bit wrong. He clearly feels that when it reaches 100%, there will be a qualitative change. As for what the qualitative change is, he doesn't know. This premonition was just like sensing the Scarlet Witch and the sunshine before. He was sure that this feeling was correct. We'll only know then. At this moment, Su Yao was both disappointed and looking forward to it. He wished that the energy points in his pocket would skyrocket so that he could increase the last 1%. However, it was almost done, and he had a hunch that the 1% wouldn't be stuck for long, and there shouldn't be a lot of energy points missing. Time passed quickly, and it was the morning 3 days later. Inside the luxurious villa. Chin, where are you going? Margaret looked doubtfully at Chin, who was about to go out. The remaining Dabali people also looked at Chin. Chin glanced at them, hesitated, and said, I have always felt that there is something attracting me somewhere, and I am going to go and have a look. Attract? What? The Dabali people looked at each other, a little confused. But since Chin said so, they couldn't stop them. After discussing it, they were ready to go and see it with her. While Chin and the others were taking action, the X-Men had almost locked onto Chin's location and were heading here. And because Chin's power is so strong, not only Professor X came, but even Magneto Eric agreed to go at Professor X's plea. While the X-Men are on the move, the internet is exploding at the moment. A lot of time has passed since the last day or two that Irina said, but things have not progressed yet. Irina, where are you? Come out and explain. Is the arrest operation by the government departments ongoing? Another scam. Facing the angry questions from netizens and viewers, Irina was flustered. Fortunately, good news came at the critical moment, which made her relieved. As the time approached noon, Irina started a live show. Irina, do you still have the nerve to broadcast live? Big liar. However, in the face of the abuse from the audience, Irina did not panic. After smiling awkwardly, she said, viewers, don't worry, the government departments just took a little longer to prepare. In fact, they have already started taking action. Chapter 71. Netizens stopped cursing for the time being and felt refreshed. At this time, they heard another piece of good news from Irina. In order to make up for this missed appointment, this arrest operation will be broadcast live nationwide, and everyone can see the footage of this arrest. Of course, what Irina did not say was that the government departments wanted to restore their lost face, once again establish their dignity in front of the people, and at the same time show their strength to warn some people, which led to this live broadcast arrest. The audience and netizens didn't know this, and they didn't want to know. When they heard her say this, they immediately stopped scolding her. Real, where it is, start quickly. Hurry up. Knowing that everyone was anxious, Irina didn't keep them waiting long and quickly switched the screen to the live broadcast screen. At the same time, several television stations in the United States also broadcast live footage in real time. On the green grass playground of the stadium, countless spectators saw nearly 100 black unknown humanoid creatures standing in the playground, rose in a somewhat creepy manner. What are these? Robot. Oh, God. Under the shocked gazes of hundreds of thousands of spectators, each of these black humanoid creatures flew up and flew in one direction. The audience's perspective also flew up, steadily following the group of black unknown humanoid creatures. At the same time, the voice narration from the host Irina also sounded. Hello, audience friends, let me introduce to you that these big black guys are actually robots, sentry robots secretly developed by the government. They are the ultimate weapon against mutants, but they are harmless to us humans, so there is no need to worry. Now they are looking for the target of our mission. With them, the mutant boy will not be able to escape this time. You can rest assured about this. Listening to the host Irina's words, hundreds of thousands of viewers did not believe it immediately but were a little skeptical. With these nearly 100 black lumps, can we really catch that boy? Don't let another failed operation happen. As if they knew what they were thinking, they saw the power of the sentry robot. One of the dark sentry robots seemed to have discovered something and flew straight towards the low altitude. The live broadcast footage began to focus, and hundreds of thousands of viewers clearly saw the black sentry machine flying in front of a bearded man who was robbing people. Shet, what the hell are you? Omar, who was in his 30s, looked shocked. Before he could recover, he saw the black figure punching him. As hundreds of thousands of spectators watched, Omar's body turned to rock. Boom, he punched the sentry robot, and the sentry robot caught his fist with its right hand. Then the next second, a scene that shocked everyone appeared. As soon as Omar's fist was caught by the sentry robot changed. Visible to the naked eye, its body has also turned into a rock material. While Omar was stunned, the Sentinel robot gradually exerted force on its right hand, not only copying his abilities, but also using a force beyond his to knock him down. Then, the Sentinel robot punched him unconscious. Then, he put on a mutant controller, which was a suppressed version. He couldn't use any of his abilities at all, similar to pulse interference. Ignoring Omar, who was unconscious on the ground, the sentry robot returned to black and flew away. At this time, host Irina's smiling voice sounded in the ears of the surprised audience. Just like what you have seen, these sentry robots in front of you can copy the abilities of mutants. With them, mutants are no longer a threat. As soon as he finished speaking, hundreds of thousands of viewers were shocked. Copying ability, so powerful, is this a sentry robot? After the shock, they began to gloat a little. That mutant boy can't escape. If they didn't know the capabilities of the sentry robot, they might still have doubts, but now they don't even have doubts at all. With these Sentinel robots, why do teenage mutant kids have to escape? Under the gaze of everyone, the sentry robots quickly approached the target. Out in the middle of nowhere. Floating flight experience +1. Light energy +1. Su Yao was collecting light energy when he suddenly received an early warning from Venom. Su, run quickly, I feel danger is approaching. Venom's little head popped up, his face extremely solemn. Su Yao frowned slightly and looked up at the distant sky. In the distance, he saw a group of black spots approaching rapidly. When he got closer, Su Yao clearly saw what they were, and then his face changed wildly. We can't run away. Su Yao responded to Venom with a sigh. He is well aware of the capabilities of the sentry robots and knows that they can retrieve the location of mutants within a certain range. Even if his space is now moved to a hidden place, it is estimated that they can be found without getting lost at all. At this time, the black sentry robots flew close and surrounded them. Nearly 100 sentry robots were suspended in the air, looking at him coldly. Haha, he is miserable. God bless him, it scares me just to look at it. Looking at the young man in black who was surrounded in the center, the audience and netizens showed pity on their faces. Under countless pairs of surprised eyes, Su Yao slowly floated up and faced off against the surrounding sentry robots. Sentinel robot. Su Yao's voice slowly spread around, surprising Alessandro and Dr. Bolivar who were secretly watching. How does this guy know? Not only them, but the netizens and viewers were also a little confused. No, didn't this black sentry robot just come out? How did you recognize the mutant in front of you? It was earlier than everyone knew. Ignoring their doubts, Su Yao's terrifying aura gradually rose, accompanied by strange accompanying music. After glancing at the encirclement, Su Yao did not stay in the center, but flew towards the high altitude on the right. The heads of the sentry robots opened layer by layer, and then nearly 100 huge laser beams were fired at him instantly, as if they had anticipated the direction of his flight. Boom boom boom. The sound of the laser rubbing against the air appeared. Rebound shield experience +1. Su Yao's expression changed, and he quickly used a rebound shield to block it in front of him. Fortunately, he just flew in one direction, otherwise he would have to face lasers from all directions now, and a rebound shield would not be enough, and more energy would be consumed. Su, hide quickly, Venom reminded hurriedly. Su Yao relied on his flying speed to move away from his original position. The next second, he saw a surprising scene. The rebound shield, which he had always been defenseless against, was blown away by nearly 100 laser beams. If he hadn't been able to hide quickly just now, he would have been vaporized by now. Then in an instant, Su Yao felt that there was a lot of laser energy stored in the void space. After trying it, he found that it could still be released, and immediately raised his hand. Give it back to you. Boom, a huge flame-red laser appeared and hit a sentry robot in an instant. The next second, the sentry robot was thrown away by the laser, and then the luster of diamond appeared on its body, trying to change form to avoid the blow. Unfortunately, facing a collection of almost countless lasers, it was obviously beyond his upper limit, and most of his body was directly destroyed. With a bang, it fell to the ground and did not move for a long time. Looking at this scene, the audience and netizens showed surprise. Flying so fast, can it still reflect energy? Are all the sentry robots destroyed like this? Also, the feeling the boy gave them at this moment. The heaven and earth seemed to coexist with him, and all things seemed to be unique to him, looking a little inhuman. Coupled with the strange accompanying music, countless viewers instantly became nervous. Fortunately, the next scene made them relieved. Seemingly realizing that they could not attack together, the sentry robots changed their strategies tacitly and began to attack Su Yao with lasers. Rays of red light flashed across the sky, accompanied by Su Yao who kept dodging. If the floating flight speed hadn't increased, he might have been hit. Of course, if this continues, it will be a matter of time before he is hit. Seeing him dodging left and right, the audience and netizens were a little happy. Haha, no matter how powerful you are, you still can't defeat the large number of sentry robots. What's the point of killing 1 or 2 sentry robots? If you can, kill a bunch of them. At this time, not to mention the excitement of the audience and netizens, even Dr. Bolivar and base director Alessandro, who were spying secretly, also felt excited when they saw that the Sentinel robot had the upper hand. The first battle with the mutants went well. Are you going to win? Black particle experience +1. Black particles appeared in Su Yao's hands, and then shot like bullets at a sentry robot 18 meters away. Even though the sentry robot reacted quickly and transformed its body into diamond, it still could not withstand the attack of black particles. Amidst the harsh cutting sounds, a large dark hole appeared in the chest of the sentry robot, with firelight flickering inside. Another one solved. Can't you absorb and analyze this ability? Dr. Bolivar looked at the Sentinel robot with a somewhat stunned expression. While Alessandro and the others were secretly surprised, Su Yao frowned. There were too many sentry robots, so what if 2 were eliminated? There were still more than 90 sentry robots. Even if he stood still and asked to clean them up, he might not be able to clean them all. Unless, use sunshine. However, the consequence of using full sunlight is very clear, that is, it consumes almost all the light energy in the body. If a new sentry robot appears, we will not know how to deal with it. Su Yao believed that he would never think too much about this. It is very likely that the government departments have already made such arrangements. Therefore, at this moment, he was a little hesitant, not knowing whether to use sunshine. At this time, while he was dealing with the Sentinel robots here, the X-Men also found the missing Phoenix girl. The strong sunshine at noon shines down. Qin Zheng, Margaret and others faced the sun and rushed towards the sensed location. Suddenly, they saw Professor X, Charles, Magneto, Eric, Wolverine, Logan, Chris and others blocking the front. Qin's expression was complicated. "Qin, come back with us." Professor X moved his wheelchair and stretched out his right hand, his expression full of sincerity. Margaret walked out, chuckled, and replied, "She is no longer a child, she can be anywhere she wants." No, Professor. He found that psychic power could not enter this woman's brain at all, just like Eric wearing a psychic shielding helmet. So, he was very confused. "Qin." Wolverine Logan stood up and wanted to say something. Qin looked at them and said calmly, "I think I'm fine now and don't need to go back." When Logan wanted to step forward, he was wrapped in a huge force of thought and flew backwards. With a bang, he fell to the ground far away, and the sky was filled with dust. Logan. Storm flashed lightning with her hands, and then the electric beam flew towards Jean, trying to stun her. Boom! Bright white lightning streaked through the air. Qin was wearing bright red clothes, with flying red hair, his eyes were slightly black, and wisps of energy lines appeared on his face. She quickly raised her hand and shot away the electric beam on the spot. Boom! The electric beam hit the ground far away. What? Storm and the others were surprised. Magneto Eric waved his hand, and a silver chain flew from the far corner, and then flew towards Qin, trying to tie her up. Then, a scene that surprised everyone happened. Qin just raised her head and glanced at the chain, and then the chain froze in the air, unable to move at all. Magneto Eric frowned and secretly exerted force. However, no matter how he used his abilities, the chain did not move at all in midair. "Even I can't deal with your magnetism." Qin's red hair was flying, and she looked at Magneto Eric with a pair of dark eyes. Her face was full of joy, and her laughter reached everyone's ears. "It feels good." As she laughed, the surrounding houses rose from the ground, and the scene was extremely scary. Boom boom boom. Qin raised her hand, and the silver chain flew away. For a moment, Wolverine, Logan and everyone else were shocked. At this moment, Qin seemed invincible and looked extremely terrifying. Not only could the psychic power of Professor, it even easily uprooted more than a dozen surrounding houses. Moreover, they have reason to believe that this is not Qin's limit. Professor X, Charles, knows this very well. When she was a child, Qin's telekinesis could lift an entire town's cars, let alone now. At this time, Margaret was still adding fuel to the fire and said with a smile, "Qin, I've told you before, you are so talented that they can't match you or understand you. You are the most special being on this planet. Facing the unknown that they cannot control, they will be afraid and even try to control you. Don't believe them. Follow your heart. Whatever you want, do it." Margaret seduces slowly. "Qin, don't believe what she says." Professor X, Charles, tried to say something. Magneto Eric on the other side saw this and changed his approach. He looked at Qin, who was surrounded by black energy, and said seriously, "Do you remember the first time we met? You know what I see in you." Magneto Eric's mind couldn't help but recall the surprising scene he saw when he went to pick up Jean when he was a child. Things in the whole town are floating. Qin looked at him, as did everyone else. Magneto Eric continued with a smile, "I see the next level of revolution that Charles and I have dreamed of." He glanced at Charles and had to sigh, "I don't understand why Charles wants to turn a goddess like you into a mortal. I can control metal, but you can do whatever you want, do whatever you want." Jean stared at him, "I don't think you are any different from Charles." Magneto King Eric shook his head, "No, I am different from him. He wants to suppress your abilities, but I am different. With me, you can be yourself. It's just like God's arrangement." He said softly, "You have such a powerful power, and you were born to lead us mutants and fight against humans." "Eric, you." Professor X Charles on the side couldn't help it. Eric scolded, "Shut up, Charles, your old ideas are no longer suitable for today." Qin. Cyclops Scott also wanted to say something, trying to save her. Wolverine Logan walked up to Chris and others, looked at the scene of buildings flying in front of him, and sighed, "It would be great if Sue was here, maybe he can do something." After finishing his words, Otto next to him shook his head, "Logan, don't be joking. Even if Sue is here, he can only support this Chin for a while, and it won't have much effect." Logan was startled, then looked at Chin's explosive appearance, and subconsciously agreed with this sentence. Indeed, as Chin is now out of control, it will be difficult for anyone to come. Even if Sue comes, he will still be suppressed. At this time, a scene that surprised all of them appeared, and they saw the sound of breaking through the air coming from a distance. A black figure flew here with a group of strange black humanoid creatures. Originally, the Phoenix girl was approaching, and she made such a big noise, which directly attracted Su Yao's attention. Thinking that there might be some changes, he flew here to see what was going on. At this moment, Su Yao's expression under the black hood was very surprised. He didn't expect to see such a big scene when he arrived. Professor X, Magneto, Wolverine. Dark Phoenix has turned dark. He was surprised here. Following him here, the camera also switched to the hundreds of thousands of viewers and netizens here, and even some people who had climbed over the wall to watch. They were all shocked at this moment. What did they see? A dozen houses suspended in midair. My dear, is this the power of mutants? Fear. Just in time, these mutants have also been dealt with. The Sentry robot should be able to defeat them, right? While the audience and netizens were talking, Su Yao kept flying in the air and dodging the thick lasers, which surprised Logan and others below. Su Yao's familiar attire immediately made everyone recognize him, including the Dabali people. It's him. Margaret was a little surprised. The boy she had just watched on TV and commented on in the morning actually appeared in front of her. And judging from his performance, his strength is surprisingly good. After thinking about it, she shook her head. Compared to Bicken, this boy was a little more ordinary. Only the most special piano deserves her attention. Other Dabali people also had similar thoughts. Not far away. Is it this child? Professor X was startled. Then, he was a little surprised. This kid was still able to cope with the siege of a bunch of big guys. Magneto Eric next to him had surprise in his eyes. The boy he had been searching for unexpectedly appeared in front of him. If it weren't for the urgent matter now, and Chin was standing in front of him, he would have really wanted to talk to the young man. At this time, Sue, Wolverine Logan shouted, looking up, "What are these things?" Su Yao explained while dodging, "They are sentry robots, machines developed by the government to deal with mutants. Be careful, these sentry robots can copy mutant abilities." Logan and others, who had not cared at first, were instantly shocked. Copying mutant abilities? Not kidding. Can any ability be copied? Su Yao flew down. At this time, a sentry robot flew to the blackened Jean Grey. Under the gaze of hundreds of thousands of viewers and a large number of foreign netizens, Chin raised her hand and fixed the sentry robot. Then, a shocking scene appeared. Energy surged from Chin's body, and the next second the sentry robot switched into the form of a steel man. In the steel man state, it directly turned into fly ash and dissipated. Just for a moment, there was not even a splash of water. Hundreds of thousands of spectators were shocked. Are they all so perverted? This woman looks even more perverted than that mutant boy. At this moment, they couldn't help but wonder whether the Sentinel robots could really deal with mutants. How could one be stronger than the other? Not only were they surprised, Dr. Bolivar was also surprised. How can this woman dismantle the sentry robot? The sentry robot is almost indestructible in that steel state. The hardness at that time was only slightly weaker than adamantium alloy. Why is this woman? Dr. Bolivar was shocked and puzzled. Then he was surprised again. This woman's abilities can't be absorbed, analyzed, or copied at the same time. What happened? In the battlefield, Chin raised her hand, and the mental shield easily blocked the laser, and then used her ability to disintegrate the sentry robots one by one. Facing her decomposition ability, these Sentinel robots cannot absorb, analyze, or copy it no matter what, as if they have encountered a bug. At this time, Magneto Eric looked away from the boy in the air. Compared to Chin, he couldn't care less about this fourth-level mutant child. The most important thing now was Chin in front of him. Looking at her terrifying power, Magneto Eric said loudly, this is your power, Qin, come to me. With this power we can build a nation of mutants. God sent you to save us mutants. At this time, Black Phoenix Qin didn't look at him. After cleaning up 3 more sentry robots, she looked at Su Yao who fell on the ground. They always thought you were nice, but I don't think so. The corners of her mouth turned up, revealing an evil, cruel smile. The next second, invisible force pressed on Su Yao, controlling him to fly slowly. Black Phoenix Qin's red clothes and red hair were flying slowly, and her black eyes were looking at the young man floating in the air quietly. Jin, stop, Professor X shouted in shock. No, Storm exclaimed. Little guy, Jean doesn't want it. Wolverine Logan shouted anxiously. Magneto Eric was startled, and for some reason subconsciously shouted, wait. Chris and the others next to him also had anxious and frightened faces. They seemed to have seen in horror that Sue turned into ashes like a sentry robot. Everyone in Debali had smiles on their faces. Yes, that's it. This is what you should do, kill him like an ant. Margaret said softly. At this moment, not only they were nervous, but the hundreds of thousands of viewers and netizens who were watching this scene were shocked, and then started to pity and gloat. This boy is finished. Base Commander Alessandro and Dr. Bolivar had regrets on their faces. They felt a little regretful when they thought that they did not deal with the young man personally. Su Yao wanted to use space transfer, but found that his space ability was blocked. In a short period of time, his body showed signs of decomposition. Feeling the crisis of life and death, Su Yao was mentally confused and the energy in his body was surging everywhere. He's out of control. Ah! Infinite energy erupted from him. Boom boom boom. The hurricane roared and countless buildings were blown away. Energy is surging everywhere. This is. Countless people were shocked. What's up with him? How is this going? Hurricane blows. Everyone couldn't open their eyes and covered their faces with their hands, looking at the young man wrapped in energy in disbelief. What power is this? Energy points. 0. Unlocking progress 99% right pointing arrow 100%. Unlocking progress 100% right pointing arrow 99%. Ah! Terrifying white gold energy surged out from Su Yao's body and swept towards the surrounding areas. The sentry robot in the steel man state that was approaching was instantly blown away and turned into powder inch by inch. Impossible. How could the Sentinel robot be solved so easily again? Dr. Bolivar looked on in disbelief. This is Steeler's status. Second only to adamantium alloy. That woman was, and so was this boy. They didn't even move, and they defeated the sentry robot so easily. What abilities do they have? Why are they all so terrible? Before they could recover, a terrifying scene occurred. Under the horrified gazes of Magneto, Professor X and others as well as hundreds of thousands of spectators. The lamps on the roadside, the ground, and the houses suspended in the air due to Qin Yan's power quickly turned into particles and disappeared under Su Yao's surging energy. The terrifying power sweeps through everything, as if it wants to destroy everything. The audience and netizens were shocked. What happened to each one of them? Are the mutants more perverted than the other? At this moment, this young man looked even scarier than that woman. He was simply a monster. Far away, Magneto Eric, Professor X and others looked horrified and felt their hearts palpitation. Boom! The terrifying aura was released from Su Yao's body, forming a hurricane and blowing in all directions. Is this ability out of control? Professor X Charles murmured in shock. He felt the shadow of death. Professor X Charles wanted to struggle, but he could only watch helplessly as the energy that destroyed everything surged in. At this moment, the telepathy exerted by the Black Phoenix piano has long been broken. Black Phoenix Qin stretched out her hand to use telekinesis to stop the young man, but it was very reluctant. What happened to him? Facing the surging energy and feeling the crisis, her body glowed with a fiery red light. Boom! The two energies collided, and everything around them was destroyed. This power! A look of pain appeared on Black Phoenix Qin's face. She couldn't believe it. In the distance, Eric and others who were running away frantically were shocked to see that Qin seemed to be at a disadvantage. How can this be? Before they could think too much and sense the crisis, the Phoenix power in Qin awakened at a deeper level. Fiery red energy surged from Qin's body, and fire wings appeared on her body. Along with Qin's scream, the Phoenix power began to explode. Boom! One platinum and one flaming red, quickly intertwined and confronted each other in the air. The surging energy spread, covered in white gold and flame red power, and everything along the way was wiped out inch by inch. Houses, cars, streets. Gray dust is flying all over the sky. Boom! The two kept colliding, destroying long open spaces along the way. Then, the two of them were like black holes colliding with black holes, spinning each other and flying into the sky. Endless platinum light and red light continued to shine and intertwine in the sky. In an instant, the entire city was covered in light, and the sky turned one platinum and one flaming red. Looking at the two people who were constantly confronting each other in the air and destroying buildings, everyone's expressions became dull. The Dabali people raised their heads and opened their mouths. Is this an original species on Earth? How can it be? Forget it for Chin, at least she has the blessing of that power, but how could this young man do it? With his mutant abilities, Margaret was stunned and in disbelief. In her opinion, on this Earth, only Chin is special, and only she is worthy of their special attention. However, now a young man has appeared, who can confront Chin head-on. Comparable to Chin, Margaret was in disbelief. Far away. Magneto Eric looked shocked and couldn't help but think, just like two gods. Forget it about Chin, he knew it a long time ago, but that boy. The mutant child we have been trying to find is actually so terrifying. How could he have such terrifying power? Isn't he level 4? Magneto King Eric said in confusion. Scott, Chris and others next to him were also shocked when they looked at it. Professor. Just when their minds were shaken, an even more terrifying scene appeared. At some point, the endless sunlight above the city focused into a scorching sun, which appeared high in the sky behind the young man, setting off him. The figure of the boy who was confronting Chin gradually became illusory. Silver hair and golden eyes, a strange sun tattoo appeared on his body, and his whole person appeared in an illusory state, seeming real and imaginary. The young man stretched out his right hand and pointed towards the sun. All things disappear and return to the beginning. What? Black Phoenix Chin was shocked, resisting the infinite light that was suddenly released in front of her eyes. In an instant, the sun above Su Yao's head released endless blazing light, covering the entire city in an instant. Countless buildings melted under the high temperatures, fires covered the entire city, and wails could be heard everywhere. It would be okay if it was just like this, but what follows the sunshine is the infinite power of nothingness. The sound of space breaking could still be faintly heard, but something was missing and did not appear. Under the light of the entire big city, countless things turned into wisps of dust particles floating away. People screamed. In just a short moment, in the eyes of countless people, a scene comparable to a disaster movie appeared. The entire city turned into dust and scattered under the aftermath of the sun. When everything calmed down, only a big pit in the dirt was left. It was the remaining people who stared blankly. Is he a monster? Demon? Dead? All dead. Through the drone, it seemed as if the audience and netizens had witnessed all this with their own eyes. At this moment, only fear was left in their hearts. Dr. Bolivar murmured, "Is this the power of mutants?" Alessandro next to him had a face full of fear. Looking at the city that disappeared under the light, and the sentry robots that also disappeared, they trembled all over. How can humans resist this kind of power? Far away. Professor X, Charles, looked stunned. Just losing control of his ability caused this disastrous scene in front of him. Not far away, Wolverine Logan and others who were lucky enough to survive because Su Yao still had some sense of consciousness were mumbling to themselves. What did Su Do do? Is this what is called light? The light that destroys everything? At this moment, they couldn't help but think of the so-called light that appeared in their ears many times. Now, they have finally seen it, but they would rather not have seen it. Su was just threatened and lost control of his ability, causing this horrific scene in front of him. They were horrified. Not far away, Magneto King Eric only had one thought left in his mind at this moment. Could it be him who was the Omega mutant that Charles was talking about? Try to make up for it at night. Not long ago, when he heard the description of light destroying everything, Magneto Eric thought that this boy was only level 4, but he didn't expect that he underestimated him. Where is level 4? Looking at the ruins of the city where almost everything was destroyed, Eric felt that he was a little arbitrary. Not everyone can be an Omega mutant, but if like this boy, who can destroy a city just by losing control, then there is no need to think that he must be an Omega mutant. Magneto Eric looked straight at the distant sky. Omega mutants, this is the ultimate existence among mutants and the ultimate threat to mankind. In other words, the god among mutants. At this time, the battle in the distance also came to an end. Facing the out-of-control Su Yao, Qin, who had not yet integrated and evolved with the Phoenix Force in a deeper way, was actually defeated. Black Phoenix Qin gasped. At this time, most of her body had disappeared, leaving only the burning upper body. Although she is recovering, a loss is a loss. She murmured in disbelief, I lost to a child. Looking at the young man hovering in the air not far away, his body still glowing with brilliance, Dark Phoenix couldn't believe it. At this time, due to the severe trauma, her main personality began to struggle and wake up. Qin Gray was suddenly startled and looked around. Looking at the city that was in ruins and even burning, and then looking at herself, Qin murmured to herself, what have I done? The next moment, she looked up at the boy not far away and said, I'm sorry. After finishing speaking, she turned her head and glanced at Scott, Logan and others in the distance. Then slowly, her whole body turned into flames and disappeared. Su Yao was stunned for a moment, and his chaotic consciousness quickly came to his senses. This is. After looking at the ruins of the city and feeling his own state at the moment, Su Yao was also stunned. Finally, his eyes looked at the place where Qin disappeared. The power of the Phoenix. Su Yao felt that the Phoenix female Qin was not dead. This feeling was strange, but he was sure that he was not wrong. Moreover, the Phoenix Force originally had the ability to resurrect, so he would be surprised if he died. Su Yao's attention did not continue to be on Qin, but turned back to himself. At this time, he had changed back to his original appearance, and had a series of good or bad effects. The bad influence comes from this out-of-control rampage. If you want to use that much power, you naturally need to pay a price. The good impact comes from unlocking 100% progress. As for what exactly had changed, he couldn't figure it out for a while. He just felt strange and felt something. There was no time to feel more. At this time, Su Yao could no longer hold on. Before his power disappeared, Su Yao used an unprecedented spatial transfer. In just an instant, his figure disappeared under the gaze of hundreds of thousands of people. Birds chirped. Su Yao found that he was in a primeval forest with lush foliage. He fell under a tree. Qin is dead, disappeared along with the energy. The Dabali froze. Their hearts were filled with reluctance and shock. Is there anything on this planet that is more special and stronger than that Qin? Even Qin, who possesses that kind of power, can't be defeated. What kind of power does that young man possess? Why is it so scary? Thinking of the young man's power, even they felt chilled at this moment. Far away, Qin, the X-Men all looked sad. Professor, is Qin dead? Died in the hands of that child? Cyclops Scott is unwilling to accept reality. Just when they were sad, Professor X hesitated and said, I'm not sure. What? The sad people were stunned and all looked at Professor X. I seem to have sensed Qin's spirit, but I don't know where she is. Professor X, Charles, hesitated. Logan and others were surprised. In other words, Jean is probably still alive. For a moment, they didn't know whether to be sad or happy. At this time, Magneto Eric in the crowd suddenly said, let's think about how to find that boy. Professor X Charles glanced at him and suddenly nodded, Eric is right. Facing the stunned gazes of everyone, Professor. You should all know that I discovered an Omega mutant some time ago, but I haven't found him until now. As he spoke, his tone paused and became more solemn, until, after meeting the child just now, I discovered that the Omega mutant was probably him. After saying this, Wolverine Logan and others' eyes widened. Omega mutants. Sue, they know what this means. Professor. Cyclops Scott was confused. Professor, is it that serious? Professor, you also saw the scene just now. If the child is controlled by someone, you will see this scene often. And I want to tell you, this is not the limit of the power of Omega mutants. You don't want to see that. It's okay that Professor. Is this the Omega mutant? It's too scary, Otto murmured. I really can't see how that little guy has such power in his body. Wolverine Logan sighed. At this moment, they vowed to find him before others find him. Far away. Wook, what should we do now? The Dabali people all looked at Margaret. Margaret frowned and thought for a moment, then said, let's find the young man named Sue first. If possible, try to study his body and strength to see what's going on. She doesn't understand why the primitive species on Earth are so powerful. Not only did she not understand, but the other Dabali people were also similar. After hearing what she said, they all agreed with her words. While they were discussing here, at this moment in the Institute, Dr. Bolivar and base director Alessandro began to doubt their lives. Whether it was for the woman or the boy, the sentry robot had no effect at all on them. And a whole city. Dr. Bolivar gritted his teeth. He can improve the Sentinel robot. If it doesn't work now, it doesn't mean it won't work in the future. It will definitely work in the future. Alessandro next to him murmured, then the kid is really invincible and has no limits. A whole city. There was deep fear in his eyes. After a while, he murmured, no, he is against the entire United States, and he will not end well. How could a mere mutant go against such a big country as the United States? Alessandro thought, that kid will definitely be miserable in the end. Now, hundreds of thousands of viewers and netizens who watched the entire show were genuinely afraid of mutants. An entire city disappeared right before their eyes. Disappeared under the power of mutants. Is this the power of mutants? Can they really be eliminated? At this moment, they were genuinely afraid of the young man who was covered in light. As time goes by, the impact of this incident is getting bigger and bigger, and no ordinary person who knows about it is not afraid. This event was also recorded in the books and was called the lighting event. The young mutant who caused an entire city to disappear was also called a devil or devil by ordinary people. As for the mutants, because of his glorious image when he activated his abilities, they called him Messiah, which means the savior of mutants, hoping that he can save mutants. Birds chirped. Primeval forest. Ahem. Su Yao stood up from the tree, covered his mouth and coughed, and climbed up quickly. Venom, are you still there? He looked to his right hand. Su Yao found that Venom seemed to have suddenly calmed down, and there was no nagging sound in his ears. He was still a little unaccustomed to it. Before he could wait long, Venom's weak voice soon sounded. I am here. Venom came out of his right hand, and the whole thing looked a little wilted and weak. What's wrong with you? Venom opened his mouth to explain. It turns out that when he lost control just now, although he didn't actively harm Venom, it still caused him a lot of trauma. After calming down for a while, Venom looked at him blankly and murmured, Sue, you are so scary. Not long ago, Sue was like a god. Until now, he still has some lingering fears, and it scares him just thinking about it. Seeing that there was nothing wrong with Venom, Su Yao ignored him and focused on himself. Name: Su Yao. Age: 16. Remaining lifespan 137 days. Mutant abilities: Imitation, Energy Absorption. Current imitation object: Orochi. Title: Sun God, Will of the Earth. Unlock progress 0%. Ability: Floating Flight 531 2000ths level 4. Locked. Energy points 0. Su Yao's eyes gradually became serious, focusing on the unlocking progress of 0% and the ability to lock in the middle. As the sun shined on him and he felt the light energy gradually recovering in his body, Su Yao subconsciously tried it, and discovered something that made him look ugly. Whether it's black particles or space transfer, he can't use it at this moment. Even more than that, he also felt that there seemed to be something wrong with Orochi's imitation panel. Is this the price of losing control and using that kind of power? Su Yao was stunned. How to recover? Restore the unlocking progress. Will the abilities be unlocked one by one after that? Doesn't this mean that I won't be able to use anything for the time being? Without his abilities, how can he survive in this dangerous world without dying in minutes? Etc. Suddenly, Su Yao thought of something. When the unlocking progress reached 100%, he felt that something had changed in him, and he vaguely sensed something. In addition, he also sensed the new imitation panel. A parody panel belonging to Scarlet Witch. Ignoring the Scarlet Witch's panel for the moment, he focused on imitating what Orochi perceived when he was 100% aware. In the dark, Su Yao felt that his perspective was getting higher and higher, and he seemed to be vaguely connected to the earth. However, this connection is not close, and he doesn't know why. At least he can't feel that he can do anything. In addition, Su Yao also felt that something had changed, but he didn't know what it was. He always felt that the change was huge. Su Yao was confused here. Earth 199,999, which is the universe where the events of Iron Man and other movies took place, is currently in the Kamar-Taj library. The dim library. Cassius, who is wearing a yellow robe and has his hair tied back, looks like a middle-aged man. He is holding an oil lamp in his left hand and reading a locked forbidden magic book in his right hand. Originally, he was just an ordinary person. The death of his wife and children made him sad. He met Modu, a disciple of Ancient One, in a tavern, and then he had the opportunity to join Kamar-Taj. However, even after learning magic and breaking away from the ordinary world, he still couldn't forget his wife and children. What's more, his motivation for learning magic is to resurrect his wife and children. Unfortunately, although his magic talent is good, and he even became Kamar-Taj's senior brother, it is simply impossible to resurrect his wife and children through practice. Cassius realized this desperately. Therefore, some time ago, he proposed to the Supreme Mage Ancient One that he wanted to learn the sealed forbidden magic in the hope of finding a way to resurrect his wife and children, but he was rejected miserably. Reluctantly, he came here quietly and peeked at the locked magic book. After searching for a while, he found nothing good. Suddenly, Cassius's eyes stopped on the pages of an ancient book. I saw a mysterious ritual painted on it, and some important information was recorded in the text message below. Cassius palmed the pages. It says that through this ritual, one can communicate with a certain existence beyond time. And the name of that being? Dormammu. Dormammu, Lord of the Dark Dimension. Looking at the above introduction, Cassius murmured emotionally. Existence beyond time. How terrible. It is introduced above. Dormammu, the Lord of the Dark Dimension, possesses unpredictable strength and can grant people strength and immortality. Cassius was a little emotional. Maybe he can save them. However, as he continued to watch, he quickly calmed down as if a basin of cold water had been poured on him. The book says, there is a danger in communicating with this being. If your mind is not strong, you will surely fall into darkness. The book is full of warnings to the viewer. However, Cassius can't care about anything. In order to resurrect his wife and children, he is willing to try and do anything. Just when he couldn't help but want to try it, he discovered that there was more content at the back of the book. It turns out that this book not only introduces this existence, but also introduces another existence. The book says, in the east he is called Tao, in the west he is called Alaya, Gaia. I tried to communicate with him through rituals and clarify its existence, but there was no response. Road, Alaya, Gaia. Cassius turned the pages. To be recorded in this book, it must be a similar existence, right? Also beyond time. Maybe the same thing can give people strength and immortality. Cassius looked hot. However, after reading this introduction, he was a little disappointed. It is recorded in the books that this existence does exist, but it has never responded to people. No one can successfully communicate with him, and naturally no one can draw on his power. Even the author of this forbidden magic book doesn't know why. After all, such great existences have always been mysterious and secretive, and are inaccessible and unexplorable to the mortals. Of course, there are some benefits because of this. If you cannot communicate with this great being, it means that performing the ritual of communicating with him will basically have no side effects or costs. Cassius soon saw the rituals that communicated with this being. Touching the diagram of magical rituals on the page, Cassius quickly made up his mind. The desire to resurrect his wife and children made him unwilling to let go of any opportunity. Even if he was unwilling to respond to the existence of mortals, he was willing to give it a try. Tear. Cassius tore off a few pages that recorded this person's existence, locked the forbidden magic book again, and left here quietly. It didn't take long, just a few hours, for him to arrange the ritual to communicate with the devil. Late at night, in a remote open space, in the center of the illuminated oil lamps, is a ritual diagram with strange lines. After setting up the ritual magic circle, Cassius immediately made gestures and borrowed magic power, reciting an ancient and awkward spell. Soon, a blue light lit up during the magic ceremony. Cassius sensed something and a great will. However, just like what was written in the forbidden magic book, although he sensed the will, he could not do anything and could not even communicate effectively with him. Reluctantly, Cassius said loudly, "Great demon god, humble believers are calling you here." The night breeze blew by, but nothing happened for a while. Cassius looked disappointed, feeling that the hope of resurrecting his wife and children disappeared in an instant. Just when he couldn't help but want to give up, Su Yao, who was basking in the sun in the virgin forest and collecting energy points, suddenly froze. Like an auditory hallucination, a faint sound of prayer reached his ears. "Great demon god, humble believer." Su Yaoshuan had no doubt that he was hallucinating. "Venom, did you hear anything?" "No Su, what's wrong?" "Nothing." Su Yao fell into deep thought. There was no one around, so where did this sound come from? Subconsciously, he responded in his heart. "Believer." Cassius, who was about to give up, had excitement and joy in his eyes. He heard a vague and mysterious voice that sounded like Sanskrit and responded to the word believer. There was actually a response. At this moment, Cassius felt like he had won the first prize, and he felt like he had been hit by a surprise. This demon god actually responded to him. Suppressing his excitement, he hurriedly said, "Great demon god, my name is Cassius. I have something to ask the great you for help." After saying that, he quickly asked anxiously, "I wonder if you have the power to resurrect people." "I want to ask you to resurrect my wife and children." In the virgin forest, Su Yao was slightly startled when he heard the anxious prayers coming from his ears. Cassius. This name sounds familiar. Just thinking about it for a moment, Su Yao realized who this person was. He was the villain from Doctor Strange 1, who had surrendered to Dormammu, the Lord of the Dark Dimension, for power and immortality. For the sake of strength and immortality, he even destroyed the Earth's protective formation and wanted to lure Dormammu, the Lord of the Dark Dimension, to invade reality. But in the end, he was naturally stopped by Doctor Strange. After Dormammu was expelled, he was also swallowed into the Dark Dimension. It is not known whether he was swallowed by Dormammu, or whether he was suffering forever in the Dark Dimension like a living dead. Wife and children. Su Yao suddenly understood why this man was so obsessed with eternal life and why he hated Ji Yuyi so much. His obsession with eternal life was probably due to the death of his wife and children, which made him fear death. As for the hatred towards Ancient One, he probably felt that Ancient One knew how to resurrect people, but was unwilling to teach him, which made him feel disappointed. The resurrection, he said, is indeed possible in Marvel, but few people can do it because it violates the rules. Su Yao has several possible methods of resurrection, such as turning back time with a time stone, or through the quantum realm. However, both approaches will have consequences. Another one is the eternal fire of the Asgardian fire giant Searcher. This thing is suspected to be able to resurrect people. The goddess of death Hela used it to resurrect the army. I just don't know if it's the effect of the eternal fire, the effect of Hela, the goddess of death, or the special relationship between Asgardians. However, although he knew the method of resurrection, even if it had side effects, he would not tell others plainly, and he was not familiar with Cassius. At this moment, his attention was focused on the word devil that Cassius said. Demon. Su Yao was a little stunned. When did he get involved with the devil? Etc. Su Yao felt something was wrong. Ever since Orochi became 100%, he has had a vague connection with the earth. Now he actually senses that there is also a connection with the place where Cassius is. Moreover, this Cassius also has a ritual to summon and contact him. Call him the devil. Su Yao was a little surprised. After Orochi imitated 100%, there were too many changes, right? No wonder he felt that there had been a big change. It turned out that the change happened unconsciously, forcibly turning the identity of Orochi, the will of the earth, into a real existence. Su Yao sensed the opposite side. Suddenly, his eyes narrowed, and a desire appeared in his heart. He felt that there was something he needed over there, or in other words, something that Orochi panel needed. He even felt that as long as he absorbed the power of that thing, the side effects of losing control before would disappear. His abilities will come back one by one. What is it? After just thinking for a moment, a blue square appeared in Su Yao's head. Cosmic Cube. Apart from this thing with space power, he really couldn't think of anything else that could attract him so much. If you knew what was in the Cosmic Cube, it was the Space Stone, one of the Infinity Stones. The source of the serpent's power is mainly space. Must get this thing, even if it's just for a little while. Su Yao began to think deeply. At this time, Cassius' cautious voice sounded in his mind again. Demon, can't you do it? There was a hint of disappointment in his voice. Su Yao's eyes flickered, and he made a decision in his heart. The next second, a mysterious voice echoed in Cassius' mind. Okay, I know several ways to resurrect people. As long as you help me get something, I will tell you how to resurrect people. Listening to the voice of this demon, Cassius was a little excited. Devil, what is it? The cosmic cube should now be in the hands of a force called Shield. You can find a way to get it from them. Cosmic Rubik's Cube. Cassius felt hopeful at first, then a little worried. What this demon god talks about is probably not easy to obtain. If you fail. No, he will never allow it. He thought of something and asked with implicit expectation, Great demon god, can I borrow some power from you? With your power, I will be more confident in getting the thing. In Kamatage, all magical power is borrowed from the demon gods, and the source of all major magical powers is also the demon god. Only by borrowing power from them can magic be performed. There is a price to pay for borrowing power from the demon gods. The price is high but the price is small. The one that costs less is called white magic, and the one that costs more is called black magic. The cost of borrowing magic from the Trinity Vishan Emperor is very small, so most of the magic used by Karmataj is borrowed from Vishan Emperor. And since the demon god in front of him is here, he doesn't need to borrow power from other demon gods. Su Yao was slightly startled when Cassius' words came. He naturally knows that Marvel's magic system is very strange, and he also knows that their magic needs to be borrowed to be used, but although Cassius calls him a demon, he knows very well that he is not a real dimensional demon. Where can he borrow his power? But, maybe, it's possible. Su Yao was not sure. After hesitating for a moment, he said casually, you can try it. Seeing that the demon agreed, Cassius's eyes lit up and he immediately recited a spell to borrow power. As he finished reciting the incantation, Su Yao immediately felt a strange feeling. It seems that he has some kind of connection with Cassius in front of him and can give him something. Su Yao gave it a try. The next second, Cassius looked shocked. In the dim environment, a burst of sun's rays appeared on his body. A warm power appeared in his body. Although the amount was not very large, it gave him a warm and pure feeling. Just by flowing through his body, he actually felt that some of the hidden wounds in his body had recovered, and even his tired spirit was much better. What a special power, I can't even feel the negative effects. Cassius was shocked. Generally speaking, if you borrow power from the devil, you will be affected more or less, and most of them are negative. Cassius tried all kinds of magic and found that he could use this energy normally. He was surprised here, while Su Yao was feeling something. In addition to lending light energy to Cassius, he discovered that he could also lend him abilities. Just like Sidorak's Scarlet Chain and Emperor Weishan's Sacred Sword, they are powers exclusive to the demon god. However, after giving it a try, he was a little disappointed to find that because his abilities were locked, he could not borrow these abilities from black particles for the time being. But the Scarlet Witch's power might be lent to him. However, he has not developed Scarlet Witch's panel yet, and he does not have the ability to lend it to the other party for the time being. At this time, as the light energy was transmitted, Su Yao had a direct connection with Cassius, and could even see some of the other person's memories. Most of them are memories about magic, but magic requires a lot of practice to learn, so Su Yao ignored it for the time being. However, he found something interesting in it. For example, some rituals to summon dimension demons and the like. If Cassius performs this ritual, maybe he can go over there. As long as you pass by and have the cosmic cube, your abilities will be restored immediately. But at the same time, Su Yao also noticed some problems. During this time, he discovered that there seemed to be only mutants here, and there were no Avengers or S.H.I.E.L.D. like Iron Man, Tony Stark, or they would have appeared in his field of vision long ago. And if I go over there and leave enough footprints, it is likely that the two universes will attract each other and then collide. This kind of thing happened in Doctor Strange too, and it is indeed something that is very likely to happen. At that time, there will be unimaginable disasters. Su Yaoyuan was thinking. Suddenly, he discovered a forbidden magic ritual among Cassius' vast pile of forbidden magic knowledge. Through this magic ritual, you can actually merge this side with that side. Su Yaoyuan was surprised. If we do this, we can avoid collisions. However, this magical ritual is still just an idea. In particular, this ritual not only requires a huge energy source as the driving source, but also requires a person of high enough status to have influence on both sides to conduct the ritual. Putting aside the above conditions, this magical ritual is just an idea. There is no precedent for success, so the success rate is very small. Su Yao thought for a moment and found that these problems were not difficult to solve. Although he doesn't have a huge energy source, some items do, such as the Infinity Stones. Both the Time Gem and the Space Gem should be enough to perform this ritual. In particular, Space Gems can be said to be specialized in the art. As for beings with high enough status, I don't know if I count. Su Yao hesitated. He can sense both that side and this side. It can be said that both sides have influence and connection. As for whether it will fail, Su Yao couldn't help but focus on the Scarlet Witch's ability. Modify the probability. Scarlet Witch's mutant powers. As a child, Scarlet Witch inadvertently misfired a missile that landed near their home. If she hadn't accidentally modified the misfire probability, she and Kuayin might have died that year. Su Yao pondered, it's not that you can't try this magic ritual, but you need to get the cosmic cube first, and the Scarlet Witch's unlocking progress also needs to be improved. Putting aside the progress of unlocking the Scarlet Witch, whether you can obtain the cosmic cube depends on Cassius. Su Yao focused his attention on him again. In the dim clearing, Cassius is trying his hand at magic. When he tried magic, a special mark appeared on his forehead. This mark is somewhat like the shape of the sun, and it is a smaller version of the tattoo on the big snake's chest. At this time, the familiar voice of the devil rang in the ears of Cassius, who was trying magic. As long as you get the cosmic cube, I will tell you several ways to resurrect people. At the same time, I also need you to arrange a magic ritual using the cosmic Rubik's cube. As long as it succeeds, I can give you my own power. A power unique to this demon. Cassius was breathing heavily. The energy in his body alone gave him a taste of the sweetness. What if it was a power exclusive to this demon? How powerful and special would that be? There was desire in Cassius' eyes. At this moment, Cassius vowed to fulfill the devil's request. Whether it was the hope of resurrecting his wife and children or the desire for power, he could not refuse. After Su Yao told the other party what magic ritual was going to be arranged, he then changed his attention. Because magic rituals require arrangements from both parties, he also began to arrange magic rituals. Fortunately, this magic ritual does not require any hard-to-find materials. Cassius only needs to prepare everything. He basically only needs rituals and spells, otherwise he would be in a hurry. While Su Yao was drawing the magic ritual, the energy points on his body were also rising with the sunlight. Light energy +1. Light energy +1. Light energy +1. Su Yao planned to collect it for a while and use it to unlock the Scarlet Witch's panel. His sudden disappearance, Cassius' side naturally sensed the departure of his great will. There was no complaint and he accepted it as a matter of course. After all, the devil always comes and goes without a trace. All he needs to do is complete what the devil told him to do. After disposing of the magic ritual, he left here in a hurry and began to gather his followers. As the elder brother of Karmataj, he naturally has many followers, and these are his team. Soon, he gathered 5 trusted mage followers. Faced with his sudden summons, every follower had a look of confusion on his face. Cassius saw their expressions and immediately stood on the high platform and said, I know you are wondering, and I have brought you good news today. Some time ago, I used magic rituals to get in touch with an existence that transcends time. In the east, he shouted. In the west, his name is Elia and Gaia. He is a great demon. I gained strength from him, and he also promised that as long as I help him complete something, he will lend me his own power. Strength, immortality, all these are easy for the devil, as long as we complete what he has told us. Listening to Cassius' words, several followers looked shocked and hesitant at the same time, wondering whether what Cassius said was true. Cassius didn't say much, he just showed the power in his body. In an instant, the brilliance of the sun appeared. Looking at the glowing Cassius and feeling this strange energy, everyone basically believed it. As we all know, there is no source of magic power in reality. The sources of magic power are in all major dimensions and are controlled by the demon gods of each major dimension. The strange magic power in front of them was different from anything they were familiar with, but it should also be controlled by the dimension demon god. In other words, Cassius did contact a dimension demon and received his promise. Power, immortality, if the devil can really grant. For a moment, the eyes of all the mages showed envy and desire. Seeing the look in their eyes, Cassius knew that they believed it, and immediately said, "As long as you help me complete what the devil asked me to do, you may also be empowered by the devil." As soon as the words fell, their eyes immediately showed eagerness. "What's going on?" A black mage named Solvi asked hurriedly. "I need your help to find out information about the SHIELD organization and the location of the cosmic cube." Following his instructions, the 5 mages immediately started working. Soon, with the help of Karma Taj's power intelligence, they collected some information about SHIELD and the cosmic cube. Even if SHIELD's information is confidential, it is still not enough for a force that has been passed down for countless years, let alone with the help of magic. Late at night, deep underground in SHIELD, in the laboratory where the cosmic cube is placed, the sound of the portal sounded. In the shocked eyes of several nighttime security guards, orange sparks flickered, and a circle composed of sparks gradually expanded. Darren's eyes were dull. He actually saw the scenery in other places from within the circle. At the same time, he also saw 6 people in yellow clothes who looked very strange. Before he could react, Cassius led the people into the portal and stepped in here. "Stop, raise your hands." Darren and the others reacted quickly and immediately took out the pistols from their waistbands. But before they could get their hands on it, a yellow whip made of magic whipped over and snatched away their hands. "Is this the cosmic cube?" Cassius ignored them and walked to a circular instrument. The Rubik's Cube, which is palm-sized, square, azure in color, and shining brightly, is embedded in the center of the device. Looking at this beautiful thing, Cassius could feel a huge energy from it, which could scare him. It is indeed something that even the dimension demon god needs. Cassius praised. Instead of grabbing it with his hands, he used the claws formed by magic power to grab the cosmic cube from the instrument. When he was taking the cosmic Rubik's Cube, groups of people rushed here because of the alarm sound in the laboratory. The mages didn't give them a chance. They slapped their palms on the ground together, and then the space in the corridor was extended. By the time they arrived, Cassius had already led people into the portal. In the end, the portal's remaining spark disappeared from their eyes. Late at night, Nick Fury, the director of SHIELD, was notified that he was so angry that he was almost smoking and cursed on the spot. On the other side, Cassius, who returned to his station, did not delay. He immediately took the prepared materials and arranged the magic ceremony with other mages. Nearly an hour later, Cassius stopped and carefully placed the cosmic cube in the center of the magic ceremony. As the cosmic Rubik's Cube was placed, a blue energy immediately seeped out of the cosmic Rubik's Cube and quickly spread along the ritual lines to the entire ceremony. For a moment, the blue light of the magic ritual shone brightly in the dark night, which was amazing to watch. Cassius immediately walked to another magic ceremony and began to contact the devil. Primeval Forest. Su Yao, who was collecting energy points, heard Ruo Yoraowu's respectful voice. "Great demon god, the magic ritual is ready. When do you think it will be started?" "So fast." Su Yaoyuan was surprised. How long has it been since Cassius got the cosmic cube and arranged the ceremony? The corner of Su Yao's mouth twitched, and he looked at the energy point. Energy points. 13,106. I don't know if it's enough to unlock the Scarlet Witch's panel. The next second, Su Yao's attention turned to the Scarlet Witch's panel. Name: Su Yao. Age: 16. Remaining lifespan 136 days. Mutant abilities: Imitation, Energy Absorption. Current imitation object: Wanda. Title: Scarlet Witch, owner of Chaos Magic. Unlock progress 1%. Ability: Unlocked. Energy points: 13,107. Looking at the brand new panel in front of him, Su Yao's eyes lit up. The next second, his eyes focused on the 1% unlocking progress. Is it already 1%? I feel nothing. Glancing at the unlocked abilities column, Su Yao's mouth twitched. After hesitating for a moment, he added 500 energy points towards the unlocking progress. In an instant, the unlocking progress jumped. 5% unlock progress. After a while, the beep did not sound. Su Yao was not surprised and continued to increase the unlocking progress. Unlock progress 6%. Unlocking progress 8%. Unlocking progress 11%. The unlocking progress increased rapidly. In the process, Su Yao discovered that the cost of unlocking progress of Scarlet Witch was somewhat different from that of Orochi. Soon, when he added more than 10,000 energy points to the unlocking progress, the prompt sounded as expected. Unlocking progress 31%. Ability, modify probability unlocked. Ability, modify probability 0/100ths level 1. As soon as the beep sounded, Su Yao felt some changes in his body. Modify the probability. Su Yao was a little disappointed that it was not chaos magic. After feeling it carefully for a while, he found that except that his thinking reaction speed was a little faster and he seemed to be more energetic, there was no other discovery. It seems that spiritual power can only be truly possessed after awakening the chaos magic. Thinking about his spiritual power, Su Yao felt a little apprehensive. Without spiritual power, his confidence was somewhat lacking. There were too many people with spiritual power. He didn't want his memory to be spied on or enslaved by someone's mind control. But it should be soon. As long as the progress continues to be unlocked, chaos magic will appear soon. Aside from being a little disappointed at not getting chaos magic, Su Yao himself was still looking forward to the ability to modify probability. You know, the ability to modify probability is the real core. Only by possessing the ability to modify probability, and then combining it with chaos magic, and the two produce a magical reaction, can reality be modified. This is something that chaos magic alone cannot have. Su, what are you doing? Under Venom's confused gaze, Su Yao picked up a gray stone the size of a walnut and scratched a mark on the front. Then, he threw the stone into the sky, and at the same time, following the strange feeling, he activated the ability to modify the probability. Front, Su Yao thought to himself. Modify probability experience +1. With a bang, the stone fell to the ground. Su Yao looked at it and saw that it was indeed the front. Modify probability experience +1. Modify probability experience +1. Modify probability experience +1. Su Yao tested it 3 more times in a row, and sure enough, every time it was positive. Seeing the results, he had to sigh. This ability was incredible. Modify the probability. Of course, since there is only one level, modifying the probability can only do this kind of thing of throwing stones. The effect of modifying the probability of other important things is estimated to be very weak. For example, the probability of success in modifying a magic ritual is estimated to not increase much. With this thought in mind, he felt the remaining light energy in his body and found that it was enough to be used 100 times. He immediately started throwing stones crazily. Modify probability experience +1. Front. Venom on the side didn't see anything at first, but slowly opened his mouth full of sharp teeth. He wanted to wipe his eyes when he saw it. Su threw the stone so many times in a row, but every time it was the side with the mark. Su, how did you do it? Venom said in disbelief. Su Gen is becoming more and more magical and mysterious. Venom is deeply suspicious. Is there something he can't do? Modify probability experience +1. Ability. Modify probability 0/500ths level 2. Almost. Su Yao felt it. At this time, we can only increase the modification probability to level 2. If we want to continue upgrading, the remaining light energy in the body will not be enough for upgrading. At this moment, Cassius should also be worried. The next second, his attention turned to Cassius. In the dark open space, the atmosphere was a bit dull at the moment. Cassius started the magic ritual to communicate with the devil, but did not receive a reply for a long time. At this time, several followers were already a little anxious and even suspicious. They wondered if Cassius had deceived them, that there was no demon at all. Facing a pair of strange eyes, Cassius also felt a little uneasy and anxious. He even had doubts. Could it be that everything before was just an illusion, just a dream? Just when he was at a loss and didn't know what to do, a familiar mysterious voice came like the sound of nature. "Start it," Cassius said excitedly. "Okay." He quickly walked to the magic ritual of the cosmic cube, and activated the magic ritual in the expectant and anxious eyes of the 5 followers. Boom! The entire magical ceremony bursts with blue light. In the center of the ceremony, the cosmic cube shot out a huge blue energy column, shooting straight into the air. As soon as it reached a height of several hundred meters, the blue energy column disappeared inexplicably, and seemed to be transmitted to the other side through space. Primeval forest. In Venom's shocked eyes, a vast beam of energy shot down from high altitude, aiming straight at the magic ritual painted by Su on the ground. Su Yao blocked the strong wind with his hands, mobilized the light energy in his body, and recited the spell in a slightly unfamiliar manner. When he finished the last syllable, a terrifying pressure appeared on him, as if it was about to crush him. Fortunately, at the critical moment, this pressure was borne by the innocent earth. No wonder it has to be of high status. If an ordinary person were to bear this pressure, it would probably turn into blood foam in a second or two, right? Centered on the magic ritual, pieces of dust and gravel flew up. Terrifying space energy overflowed, and the birds and beasts in the primeval forest screamed in terror. Without having time to think about it, he looked at the faintly broken magic ritual and activated the ability to modify the probability. Modify probability experience +1. The next second, the originally unstable magic ritual became inexplicably more stable. But this was not enough. Su Yao found it hard to imagine that this magic ritual was so difficult to succeed. He felt a pressure on his body again, and the bones in his body seemed to be rattling under the pressure. Even if there are divine objects such as the cosmic Rubik's Cube taking most of the pressure, he can't bear it. In times of crisis, on the thin line between life and death, his abilities went wild, and a red light appeared on his body. Su Yao was in a trance, and softly uttered 2 words in his trance. Merge, merge. These 2 words seemed to resound in both universes, vaguely heard by some powerful beings. Who is it? The Ancient One in Karmatage, the God King of Asgard, Odin Bolson, and other powerful beings opened their eyes. Without them even noticing, the universe seemed to have changed. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.